I want you to calm down and take a deep breath, because today's story is really special. Relax, inhale deeply, and get ready to dive into an amazing tale. Tonight we climb aboard a creaking medieval ship, smack in the middle of a storm-torn sea, to attempt something harder than winning a sword fight, getting a decent night's sleep. You probably won't survive. No shade. Medieval ships weren't built for comfort, they were barely built for buoyancy. You'll see what that means when thunder cracks, waves punch the hull, and your bedding smells like something the dog dragged in, then dragged back out because even the dog couldn't stand it. Quick thing before we dive in. If you enjoy these stories, hit like and subscribe. It really helps me out and helps this new channel reach 50K subscribers this month. Drop a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. The year is 1328. You were a lowly sailor on a cog, basically a chunky wooden bathtub with a sail. You didn't sign on for adventure. You signed on because you were poor, hungry, and someone promised 3 meals a day. They forgot to mention sleep. The storm rolled in hours ago and you haven't been dry since. Below deck, water trickles off your hood. Your knees ache from skidding across slick planks, and every inch of you hums with fatigue the ship refuses to respect. The captain shouts above, the rigging flaps like a torn banner, and urgency vibrates through the timbers. You're off watch for the moment, maybe 3 hours if luck holds, and you drop to the stairwell, which is really a ladder glazed in seawater and grime. Your hands feel like soaked leather as you descend into a wall of smell: mold, unwashed feet, fish oil, stale air, and something sweet that was fruit in a former life. A lantern swings in tired arcs. The ceiling is low enough to bruise the tall into prayer. Bodies fill every niche. Men curled like question marks, arms folded like corpses, muttering names and curses in their sleep. You step over boots, a head, and what might be someone's rat, alive, entitled, unbothered, until you find your spot. A plank, barely wider than your shoulders, damp from causes unknown. The ship lurches, no gentle rock, more like a slap from an irritated sea god. Something heavy thunders above. There goes the cheese, someone grumbles, and silence resumes its grim work. This is your bed, a slanted board wedged between a barrel of salt pork and a sailor named Allaire, who smells like he hasn't blinked since the last plague. No mattress, no pillow. Your cloak makes a decent cushion if cushion means wet fabric, colder than your hope. At first, the roll is almost soothing, like a cradle, until the cradle tips 40 degrees and your stomach files a formal complaint. Your back thuds against the hull, your foot slips off the plank, and a rat skitters along a beam like a second hand, measuring out your patience. You count breaths. You pretend the drips landing on your chest are a choice. You try to find stillness inside chaos. Historically, this was normal. Beds were luxuries for officers. Captains might have straw mattresses, lumpy and flea-famous. You get a corner of hull and whatever heat your neighbor's ribs radiate. Historians debate how ships managed sleep. Some logs swear by ironclad 4-hour watches. Others hint that storms dissolved schedules into whatever rest the sea allowed. No one writes much about the nights when the sea refused entirely. Tonight is one of those. The hull groans like it wants in. Ropes scream overhead. You imagine the drop, the boots filling, the yank downward. The fear sits quiet at the back of your skull, sipping something bitter. You breathe mildew and sweat. Allaire rolls into you. His elbow parks in your ribs. You're too tired to shove him off. You think of bread, warm, crusty, buttered. Land food, grass, a bed, a cat. And you begin to drift. Not sleep exactly, but the soft pre-sleep haze where the sea backs away a step and your body forgets to be miserable. All hands. Like that, it's over. Your ribs complain as you squirm free of limbs and bundles. Courtesy doesn't live here. The deck is calling and the sea is mean. The ladder is a fish's belly. Rain hits your face like an insult. The sail snaps like a whip. Shadows sprint ant-quick across the deck, lashing lines before something tears. Your job isn't glamorous: haul rope, bully canvas, keep your feet while the wind shoves like a drunk in a doorway. Salt water needles your eyes, claws your rope-burned palms, refills your boots. After an hour or 20 minutes, the storm drops a pitch, more tantrum than shriek. The captain, gargoyle still by the tiller, doesn't call again. Off watch for now. You stagger below, soaked anew, bones humming with exhaustion. and fold into your slot without ceremony. Theme of the night: make do. With the worst fury dulled, the hold's reality sharpens. A medieval cog's single enclosed deck is where everything happens. Eating, sleeping, stowing cargo, arguing about stolen peas. You and 30 others share it with barrels, crates, and a thriving rodent guild. On some vessels it's 50 or more, spaces for floating, not comfort. The ceiling forces you into a permanent flinch. Privacy is a rumor. Clean is a myth. And hammocks? Not yet. Those come into wide use later, around the 16th century. Here your options are wood or floor. Choose your misery. A few wealthier souls wedge straw into a corner until the straw turns to a mouldy, lice-ridden sponge. Some ships test canvas slings or netted bunks for officers, but for you it's hull curves and hope. Our lair is already snoring. A wet seaweed gargle you bizarrely envy. Sailors' brains learn to black out on command. You shift. The plank presses your hip like it's trying to move in. Pain becomes reassurance. You're still here. Outside, the storm mutters. An old argument resumed. You've learned not to trust calm. 1 hour the sea whispers, the next it flicks men overboard like pawns. The real test is sleeping amid 30 exhausted, noisy men in a wooden echo chamber. Not just snores, but sighs, prayers to St. Elmo, the hull's arthritic creaks, and a chorus of bodily opinions. Water threads through seam gaps, a constant reminder that this isn't a bedroom. It's a box daring physics to keep it afloat. And yet, this is how oceans were crossed. Not by kings. By men like you, nameless, salt-cured, 4 hours damp at a time. Night after night, storm after storm. Historians still argue the strictness of medieval watch systems. Bells every 4 hours like clockwork. Sometimes chaos when weather rules. Often. What's clear? Rest was scarce. True sleep rarer. Your fingers curl around rope burns. A dream shout in some other tongue snaps the dark. The lantern swings another slow arc. You let your eyes sink again. The ship breathes. The sea decides for now to let you. And if you're lucky, you'll steal 20 minutes before the next all hands tears the night and deposits you back into rain, rope, and wakefulness. On this sea, sleep isn't a right. It's a heist. It startles you, but you don't open your eyes. The ship rocks again, not violently, just enough to remind you where you are. And for a fleeting moment, you almost feel weightless, as if you could forget the rain, the rot, the relentless ache in your shoulders. It doesn't last. Your neighbor rolls again, elbowing your side. You grunt, push back half-heartedly. He mutters an apology or maybe a threat. Hard to tell, but this time when you close your eyes, you fall deeper. Not into a dream, not yet. Just into the dark, the kind of dark you don't fight, the kind that swallows you whole and heavy. And outside, the sea keeps moving. The first thing you notice when you wake, if you can call what just happened waking, is the smell. It hits you before you even open your eyes. A warm, fermented funk that clings to your nostrils like it's trying to move in permanently. You groan softly, roll onto your back, and instantly regret it. The damp wood beneath you feels colder now, somehow wetter, like it's been crying all night just for you. The hold is quieter than before, which is almost more unsettling. Some of the crew must be above deck again. The ones off shift remain sprawled around you in unnatural angles, limbs flopped over barrels and bundles of rope. A rat scuttles near your foot and you don't even flinch. That's how far gone you are. When something with tiny claws and twitchy whiskers brushes past your toes, then you just think, oh, morning, I guess. You sit up slowly, neck stiff, lower back locked into a position that wasn't approved by any gods or chiropractors. You sniff the air. Why? You don't know. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of masochism. It's worse than usual, that's saying something. Let's break it down. There's the sour, thick odor of unwashed bodies, strong enough to give your breath a second-hand hangover. Then there's the permanent perfume of billigage water, something between rotting fish and vinegar left in the sun. Add to that the hot, greasy smell of the last meal, which might have been boiled barley, or might have been meat, and then the ever-present scent of damp wool, wet wool to be specific. It has a unique tang, think moldy dog with social anxiety. And above it all, like the cherry on this cursed Sunday, is a sweetness, faint but sharp, something fruity and wrong. You glance toward a barrel in the corner. Fermented apples, once meant to be cider, now a chemical experiment. One of the younger sailors tried drinking some last week and ended up vomiting into his own boots. You think his boots are still somewhere down here, probably evolving into their own life form. The thing is, you get used to it slowly. Your body fights at first, your stomach flips, your instincts scream. But after enough nights, enough stormy, sleepless nights, your nose dulls like it's been beaten into submission. The smell just becomes part of the ship, like the creaking of the timbers or the rats in the walls. You don't notice it unless someone new boards. And then you get to enjoy the look of horror on their face. A tiny perk. Some sailors swear they can smell land from miles away. That's how dull life at sea makes your senses. You spend enough nights in this stew of sweat, seawater, and despair. And suddenly the whiff of pine trees or fresh bread sends you into a trance. You crawl over someone's legs, he doesn't stir, and make your way toward a barrel that might be holding fresh water. You dip your hands in and splash your face. The water's cold and tastes faintly of iron and wood. Better than salt water, barely. There's a strange comfort in knowing this is normal, this stench. You glance around. No one else seems bothered. One guy is already chewing something suspicious. Another is scratching at his scalp like he's auditioning for a lice commercial. And yeah, lice are a given. You probably have some too. Lice, fleas, bedbugs. Except there's no bed for them to infest, so they just settle into your clothes and get cozy. Here's a fun detail. Because sailors rarely change garments, especially during long voyages, the fabric they wore often doubled as their bedding. They'd sleep in the same shirt for weeks, maybe months, only washing it when the smell turned on them like a wild animal. And even then, where would they wash it? In the sea, salt water does not leave you feeling refreshed, it leaves you crusty. Literally, you develop a fine, gritty shell of salt around your body, like a weird breaded cutlet. There's a bit of scholarly debate about just how awful the stench of a medieval ship was. Some suggest it might have been overstated. Dramatic accounts from land dwellers unfamiliar with seafaring life. Others argue it was worse than we can possibly imagine, and any modern person would gag within 5 minutes below deck. From where you re-wedged, knee-deep in crusted boots and fermented socks, you were leaning hard toward worse than imaginable. You ease your head against a beam, careful not to press an ear against anything alive. Overhead the lantern swings, throwing wave-shaped shadows that make the planks seem to ripple. Your stomach growls. You consider the mess barrel, then gag at the thought of eating inside this odor factory. Someone nearby mutters in his sleep, something about geese. You blink slowly. That's the night's entertainment. This is what night means on a medieval ship. Cycles of unbearable discomfort that by repetition alone become the wallpaper of your life. You almost romanticize it. This is sea life, right? Men for centuries shackled to each other's sweat, sleeping in puddles, dreaming of bread. A grand tradition of the half-asleep and half-rotted. And still some part of you drifts, eyes half-lidded, mind loosening. Green fields, a river, the feel of dry linen against clean skin. Hilarious, really. Then the ship lurches, sharp tilt to port. A barrel thunders somewhere in the dark. A shout goes up, but not for you. Not yet. You let your eyes close again. The stench is still here, but your brain has started to file it under background, the way it filed the roll and the cold. Familiar now, like the smell of home, if home were also a prison and a compost heap. Rats, rot, and salt, part of the lullaby. You don't like it. You'd trade it for a bed, a bath, or 3 minutes of silence. But for now it wraps you, the way the hull wraps the sea, begrudgingly, imperfectly, tight enough to keep you inside. You rest your head and stop fighting the dark. It's ugly, but it's consistent. At sea, that passes for peace. Sleep, when it finally takes you in a storm, isn't rest, it's a knockout. Your body throws in the towel, your senses blur, and your brain says, fine, have it your way, and flicks the switch. The ship answers with a reminder of who's boss. A sudden drop, not far, but enough to send your gut into your throat. You snap awake, pitch black, cheek pressed to a wet plank, ears full of cracks and muffled groans. For a heartbeat you feel weightless, then the hull punches back up, trying to launch your soul out through your teeth. Men grunt, curse, shift. A few tumble from their nests. Cloaks and coils scatter like laundry in an earthquake. Someone groans, bruised likely. You lie still and listen. That sound before the drop wasn't thunder. It was a wave slapping the hull. A big one. The sea's still angry, maybe angrier. Welcome to the cradle of death, rolling, heaving, an assault on every inner ear raised on land. You've already thrown up twice this week. Odds are good you'll add to the tally. Tonight the motion is different, sharper, faster, like the ship's become a toy. You wedge a shoulder against a beam, determined not to body surf into the pea barrel again. The floor pitches starboard. Half your weight lifts before slamming back down. It's like trying to sleep in a child's swing during a hurricane. Grim historical note for the night watch. More sailors likely died from falls, crushes, and gear failures in rough weather than from enemy steel. Ships weren't ergonomic, often not even safe. In storms, the real enemy wasn't the sea. It was gravity. Men went into masts, into bulkheads over the side. Lines snapped, beams split, ladders turned into launch ramps. You feel the next roll coming, stomach doing a slow flip. Someone heaves nearby. You don't look. You breathe shallow, steady. Fingers clamp the nearest timber like a rosary. Why am I doing this? You know why. Pay. Escape. You thought the sea meant freedom. It's a wooden box full of stale air and a homicidal lantern. The wind climbs a note. A new sound joins, the rhythmic smack, smack, smack of loose canvas or a slapping line. Not your watch, you tell yourself. Not until the bell. But the creak keeps sawing at your nerves. A long groan running the ship's length like she's pulling apart. You feel it in your bones more than you hear it. Water seeps always through hairline seams. The hull swells and complains, proving why sailors call ships she. She voices her displeasure all night, and you wonder if she'll fold. And still, exhaustion drags you toward the grey in between. The mind, too tired to care, starts playing reruns. A hearth's smoke, a face you kissed in a port you can't name. Another wave. A buck. A barrel rattles and roams. You curl tighter. Someone coughs, a wet, rib-shaking cough that echoes too long. You pretend it's just the cold. Fringe comfort. Some sailors swore storms lulled them, like babes in a cradle rocked by a violent god with good intentions. If you weren't vomiting or flying, the rhythm could soothe. You're not there yet, but you can feel the pattern. Roll to starboard, creak, creak, slam, pause. Roll to port, creak, slam, pause. You breathe with it. You time micro-adjustments, hip here, toes there, a shoulder shift in the stillness. Ugly, aching, soaked, and yet a fragment of calm sneaks in. Not peace, not comfort, just a pause. Enough. Eyes closed. Rats squeak somewhere overhead. The ship shifts. You hold your corner. The sea doesn't care about your comfort or your dreams of soft beds and roaring hearths. What you get is a draft that always finds your ankles, a puddle that grows by inches, and clothes that haven't been dry since. You stopped counting. Somewhere around night 2, you gave up changing. Now it's rotate and pray. You shift. Bad call. The plank draws a hard line up your thigh. Your knee clicks in protest. Your wool tunic rasps your skin, like sleeping inside an angry sheep. You don't strip. Not ever. That's a rookie move. New hands try it once, then discover their clothes freeze into the shape of regret. On a medieval ship, you sleep in what you work in, what you eat in, what sometimes you get sick in. It's not laziness, it's survival. If all hands rings, you don't have 10 minutes to wrangle wet hose and lace boots. You go up as you are, half-laced, belt loose, shirt clinging like seaweed. Even if you had a spare, it is likely molding in the darkest corner of your sea chest, assuming a rat hasn't declared it rent-free housing. Around you, men nest in their own versions of misery. Thomas curled shrimp-tight inside an oilskin hood, a big man sprawled over barley sacks, arms crossed like a knight in a stone effigy. There's no uniformity to sleeping, only an unspoken code. Don't cross another man's space unless you like missing teeth. Don't move his gear. If he's trapped in a night terror, and that happens more than you'd think, let it burn out. Wake the wrong dream too fast, and you'll catch a fist meant for a pirate or a sea monster. You are getting used to the damp, not wet, just a permanent clammy marinade, as if the sea has decided to tenderize you slowly. Your tunic clings at the spine, hangs loose at the ribs, socks, once wool, now boiled rags that squish if you breathe wrong. Underneath, your skin itches from salt, friction, and whatever life has moved into the seams. Calm nights don't save you. You sweat through watches, the brine sets, nothing dries. Rash, ulcer, infection, sea rot is the joke that isn't. Myths persist. The sailor with a wax-wrapped clean shirt, saved for feast days or port. The man who smells better than a goat and becomes temporary nobility. Another belief says never strip down at sea. Invite the wrong spirit and the deep will notice. Pragmatism, superstition. On the water, they braid together into one rope. You tug your cloak tighter at the neck. Fish oil and old sweat, yours, but still warmth. The roll softens into a rhythm. The ocean slaps the hull like it's lost interest in killing you for the moment. A nasal snore soars the dark. You consider a nudge, decide against the risk. Instead, you listen. Beam creak, rope whisper, an occasional drip. An ugly lullaby, but consistent. Your battered body starts to unclench despite itself. You think of home, a straw mattress, thick wool blankets, firelight wobbling over a wall, the scent of wood smoke and bread and something sweet. You breathe in damp and salt and the faintest thread of that memory, and let the rhythm carry you, just a little, until the sea remembers your name again. Maybe clothes. It's a dangerous memory. Too warm, too clean. If you hold on to it, the contrast might break you. So instead, you think about the deck above, the wind calming, the ropes settling, the feeling of the ship breathing beneath you, and you drift. Not into full sleep, but into that in-between place. The place where your body forgets it's cold and itchy, and your mind lets go of what your clothes feel like just for a little while. In your dream, you're walking on dry ground. The first time someone tells you that hammocks are only for rich men and dead ones, you laugh until you realize he's completely serious. On this ship, there are no gently swaying beds strung from the beams, no canvas cocoons to rock you to sleep. That's a fantasy for later centuries, or maybe for the Navy, if you're lucky enough to sail under a king's banner. Right now, in this medieval tub creaking through the night, you sleep on what's available. Planks, barrels, sacks of grain, the curve of the hull, or if you're truly desperate, bundled ropes that imprint themselves into your spine like the worst kind of tattoo. It's not that no one knows what a hammock is. The design has been seen before, borrowed from distant lands by sailors with long memories. Some say they're used in warmer waters where the air is still and the bugs bite hard. But here in the churning northern seas, there's no place for luxury. The space below deck is tight, low, and brimming with cargo and human bodies. If someone tried to string up a hammock here, it would just swing into the ceiling, slam into someone's head, or collapse under the weight of its ambition. Instead, you learn to shape yourself to the ship. That's what everyone does. You pick your space, stake your claim, and slowly adapt your body to it. Over time, you recognize which plank won't jab your hip, which curve of the hull gives your back the least trouble. Your sleeping area is like a nest made from bad decisions and damp materials, but it's yours. And in the cramped community of a ship at sea, that counts for something. Tonight, your plank is familiar. You've slept here for weeks now, wedged between a stack of dried meat and a sullen guy named Gerard, who hums sea shanties in his sleep. He's not doing it now, thankfully. Just a quiet wheeze, a little whistle every few seconds. You've learned to tune it out the way you tune out the creaking beams and the fair-off slush of the sea breaking against the hull. Your body lies curled, knees drawn in, cloak pulled tight around your shoulders. The wooden floor beneath you is as unforgiving as ever, but your muscles have grown dull to its complaints. You're past the stage of tossing and adjusting. Now it's just about waiting for sleep to find you again, if it can. Not all the sleeping spots are equal, of course. Some men get lucky. They claim a half-empty barrel to drape across or a quiet patch beneath a supporting beam that doesn't leak. Others find scraps of old sailcloth to fold and wedge under their hips, cushioning the bones that have taken too many beatings from sharp wood. A few, through sheer force of personality or threat of violence, manage to stake out slightly wider patches of space and build little nests of rope, burlap, and discarded wool. You envy those guys until you remember they're also probably crawling with lice. And then there's the dangerous option, sleeping on the deck itself. Some men, particularly in better weather, will risk a nap topside stretched out beneath the stars, with nothing but the railing to stop them from rolling straight into the sea. It sounds romantic in theory. In practice, it's a death sentence during storms and an invitation for sunstroke during calm. But for a few brave or foolish souls, the promise of cool, fresh air is worth it. You once tried it just once, crawled topside during a lull, found a quiet corner near the stern, and laid back to feel the wind. It was blissful for about 7 minutes. Then a wave slapped the deck and soaked you from boots to beard, and a crewmate nearly stepped on your hand in the dark. You crawled back down, colder and saltier than ever, and vowed, never again. One sailor, a wiry man with more scars than teeth, insists he once slept hanging from the rigging, says he tied himself to the ropes like a spider, suspended above the chaos, gently rocking with the mast. No one's sure if he's lying, but we all hope he is, because if he's telling the truth, then someone has truly lost the plot. Now, for a bit of historical context to fold under your damp cloak tonight, sailors in the medieval period rarely had designated sleeping arrangements. Unlike later ships, which developed actual hammocks and set bunks for crewmen, these earlier vessels were all about improvisation. Cargo took priority. Men found spaces between crates, barrels, coils of rope wherever they could. On longer voyages, captains might designate sleeping shifts to conserve space, with one group resting while the other worked. But in bad weather, all rules were abandoned. You crashed where you could and dared anyone to move you. And here's the fringe fact for this stretch of the night. Some medieval seafarers believed that where you slept on the ship affected your dreams. Superstitions ran deep. If you slept near the bow, you were more likely to have visions, or so they claimed. The stern that brought nightmares. The closer you were to the waterline, the more likely you were to hear voices. Most thought it was nonsense, but even now, lying tucked against the hull, you swear you hear something in the timbers. Just a whisper, just once. You tell yourself it's the wind. There's no debate about this part, though. Scholars agree that medieval sailors slept badly. Diaries, journals, logs, when they existed, spoke of constant exhaustion. Men napped in bursts, caught shallow sleep between shifts, or collapsed outright from sheer fatigue. The idea of a full night's rest, that was land thinking. Here at sea, sleep was just another form of endurance. You adjust your body again, shifting your weight to avoid a knot in the wood beneath your ribs. The ship rocks gently now, less violently than earlier. The storm has passed into memory. For now, the rhythm of the waves is predictable, almost soothing. You find your breath sinking with it. Inhale on the lift, exhale on the fall. Someone above coughs. A boot thuds softly near the ladder, but no one calls out. No one needs you yet. You're safe for a little longer. You let your eyes close. You imagine what it must feel like to sleep in a real hammock, suspended and swaying. Your body cradled in soft fabric instead of pressed into this unforgiving timber. You imagine being weightless, untouched by splinters, rats, or Gerard's wheezing. The thought is enough to lull you just slightly past the edge of waking. You dream of floating. You don't notice them at first. When you first joined the crew, your senses were too overwhelmed by the constant noise, stink, and salt water to notice anything else crawling, scratching, or gnawing. But now, a few weeks into the voyage, you're well acquainted with your real sleeping companions, and they are many. They are persistent, and some of them are probably watching you right now with beady little eyes. Let's start with the mice. Not the cute storybook ones wearing hats and singing sea shanties. No, these are jittery, sharp-nosed, darting little scavengers that live in the cracks of the hull and only come out when they think no one's looking. You've seen one more than once, perched on a dangling rope or crouched beside a sack of oats, its tail twitching like a villain mustache. You used to flinch, but now you mostly just sigh and hope it's not chewing through your boots again. The ship is full of them. Mice, rats, even weevils if you dig deep enough into the food stores. And they're not just a nuisance, they're survivalists. They've lived on ships longer than most sailors. Some say they even know when a ship is doomed. There are stories, half joke, half warning, that if the rats start fleeing, you should too. You remember that one night you'd barely been asleep for an hour, when something warm and squishy darted across your chest. You woke up swinging, nearly punched Gerard in the face. The rat got away, of course, it always does. But you didn't sleep well for days after that. Not because you were scared. No, that passed. But because now you knew they were there, always waiting. And then there are the lice. Oh, the lice. You'd hoped foolishly that maybe the cold would scare them off, that maybe the salt would act as a deterrent, that maybe somehow you wouldn't get them. You were wrong. Everybody gets them. They nest in the seams of your clothes, in the threads of your cap, in the folds behind your knees. You scratch at first, then pick again. Eventually, your fingers are just roaming your body constantly, searching for that little pinch, that slight movement, that itchy, maddening tickle that lets you know you are not alone. There are two schools of thought about lice on the ship. One, try to stay ahead of them by shaving everything you can, boiling your clothes when you make port, and constantly picking at your scalp like a monkey with anxiety. Two, accept them as part of the job. Name a few of them and move on with your life. You're somewhere in between. You tried shaving once, but the result was less clean and more bleeding from the ear. And there's no fire here below deck to boil anything. Just damp misery and layers of wool slowly turning into flea motels. So you pick, scratch, pick again. Welcome to bedtime. Tonight you feel something crawl across the back of your neck just as you're dozing off. You slap it quickly. Could be a louse. Could be nothing. Could be the ghost of dignity past. Either way, it's gone now, and you're still here. Which brings us to the final roommate category, the supernatural kind. Ghosts if you're being dramatic. Spirits if you're being respectful. Madness if you ask the ship's carpenter who mutters about voices in the wood every time it rains too hard. You haven't seen anything, but you've heard things. A knock that didn't come from above or below. A whisper that didn't match any language you know. A shadow that passed by when no one was there. And you're not the only one. Late at night, when men are half asleep and more honest than they mean to be. The stories come out. There's a woman who walks the bow, one sailor whispered 2 nights ago. She's always barefoot and she sings, but only when someone's about to die. Another swears there's a child on board. Not a real one, of course. No child could survive this. But a presence, something small that climbs up into the rigging and giggles when no one's watching. You don't believe in any of it, except when the wind dies suddenly and the air feels too still. Except when the lantern swings, but there's no sway in the ship. Except when you're alone at the stern and feel the hairs on your neck rise for no reason at all. There's a scholarly debate, actually, about how many sailors believed in ghosts or spirits at sea. Some historians argue that superstition was a byproduct of isolation, exhaustion, and the ever-present possibility of death. Others suggest it was more deeply woven into maritime culture than most people realize. A kind of collective coping mechanism for a profession where one wrong step meant a watery grave. When you're hundreds of miles from land and one good storm away from disappearing forever, it's not unreasonable to start believing in the unseen. Tonight, you're not in the mood to argue either way. You're too busy pulling your cloak tighter, folding your limbs in against the cold, trying not to itch at the places you know are already raw. You tuck your chin against your chest and listen. The ship groans. A rat scurries somewhere above. A soft snore rises and falls like a sigh. The air is thick with breath, damp wool, and the endless scent of the sea soaking into everything. You wonder how long it takes before you stop noticing the difference between yourself and your environment. When you're no longer on the ship but part of it. Fungus, flesh, rope, salt. You drift towards sleep finally, slowly. The rocking is manageable tonight. The sounds familiar. Nothing new slamming into the hull. No fresh screams or calls to arms. You allow your mind to soften, to peel away from the crust of reality and fall inward, and just as you're slipping under, you hear it. A scratch, a long one just beyond your feet. You freeze. Another scratch, then a soft thud, then silence. It could be the rat again, or it could be someone. Something dragging their fingers across the wood. You open one eye, nothing, just darkness, the kind that wraps around you like wet cloth. You breathe in, you breathe out. If it's a ghost, you think it better not have lice too. You smile to yourself, pull your cloak tighter and let the dark take you. The idea of a full night's sleep is a joke, and the crew stopped pretending otherwise long ago. Out here, sleep isn't something you get, it's something you steal. You snatch it in short, jagged pieces, between waves, between shifts, between the moments the sea forgets to be cruel. And when you're lucky enough to fall into that heavy, dreamless kind of sleep, someone usually yanks you out of it before your brain even remembers what rest is supposed to feel like. Tonight, that someone is a greasy hand shaking your shoulder, not gently. You blink awake, your head still swimming in half-dreams. It takes a moment to remember where you are, who you are, why everything smells like wet rope and regret. Then the hand tightens, and a voice whispers, "Your watch. Move." You groan, not because you're surprised, but because you're still halfway between sleep and paralysis. Your limbs are heavy, your mouth is dry. You might have been asleep for 30 minutes, maybe less. Time doesn't mean much on this ship. The sun is long gone, and down here every hour feels exactly the same. Dark, damp, and stinking of breath and mildew. You push yourself upright, bones protesting with every movement. Your back pops like it's full of loose marbles. Beside you, Gerard's still snoring. He got the earlier watch, which means he's free to curl up now and ignore the world, smug and oblivious. You hate him a little for that. You also envy him completely. You pull your cloak tight, try to rub some heat back into your fingers, and stagger toward the ladder leading up to the deck. The boards cack underfoot. Someone coughs. A rat darts away from the lantern glow. Just another night on this beautiful floating pile of suffering. Watch duty, they say, builds character. What it really builds is sleep deprivation and a deeply unhealthy relationship with time. The ship runs on a cycle of 4-hour watches, 2 shifts per day, more if you're unlucky. Day or night doesn't matter. When your turn comes, you go. Even if your eyes burn, your legs are shaking and your brain is whispering nonsense about how you're actually still asleep. And this is all a dream shaped like misery. Tonight, your watch is the graveyard slot. Midnight to 4, the worst one. The one where the cold creeps deepest, where the ocean seems its most unforgiving, and where your body threatens to betray you with every gust of wind. Climbing the ladder feels like punishment. You grip each rung like it might be your last. When you finally emerge, the wind hits you immediately, carving through your cloak like you're made of paper. The deck is slick and gleaming in the moonlight. Above the sails flap lazily. No storm right now, thank the gods. But there's a biting breeze and just enough movement in the waves to keep the rigging creaking like a haunted house. 2 other crewmen are already there. One stands at the bow, staring into the dark sea. The other paces slowly, arms crossed, eyes distant. No one speaks. You take your place near the stern. Your job is to watch. For what exactly? Ships, mostly rocks, sometimes mermaids if you're delirious. Mostly, though, you just look out into the dark and try to stay upright. There's a trick to it. How you plant your feet just so. How you shift your weight with the sway of the ship. How you keep your body loose enough to absorb the motion without losing your balance. It's like dancing with a partner who wants you dead. The cold is worse up here. It cuts past your layers and nestles deep in your bones. You shuffle in place, stomp your feet a little, trying to wake yourself up. The sky above is a sprawl of stars. So many it makes your chest ache. The kind of view that would have taken your breath away back on land. Out here it just makes you feel small. You fight the heaviness behind your eyes. Sleep tries to crawl back in. Your body is pleading to shut down, but you can't afford to blink too long or lean too far or rest too heavily. A sailor once did that during a quiet night watch. Fell asleep leaning against the rail. When the ship rolled, he didn't. They didn't find him, just a boot floating half a mile behind. And yet, despite the risk, there's something about this stretch of night that feels different, sacred almost, a kind of stolen solitude. You're exhausted. Yes, you're cold, aching, half-conscious, but for a little while it's just you and the sea. No shouting, no rats, no snoring, just the wind through the rigging and the rhythm of water against wood. You remember hearing once that sailors on long voyages learn to nap standing up. It sounded ridiculous until now. You swear you're halfway there. Your body begins to sway with the ship back and forth, just enough to stay balanced. Your eyes blur. You blink hard. You count. Some sailors swear by counting stars, others by repeating prayers. You just focus on your breath. In, out, stay awake. Somewhere behind you, the bell rings. Half an hour gone, maybe less. Time dilates in the night. You shuffle your feet again, stretch your arms, whisper a song under your breath. One of the old ones, the kind no one teaches but everyone seems to know. You hum to keep your brain busy. Anything to keep from drifting. There's an open debate among historians about whether medieval sailors followed strictly enforced watches or if they were more chaotic in their rotations. Logs and records are sparse. Some ships might have used bells or hourglasses. Others simply rotated men based on seniority or need. But one thing's clear: sleep was never sacred. Work came first, always. You slept when the sea allowed it, not when your body begged. A fringe belief held by some old salts was that you could bank sleep, like stacking it away for the hard days ahead. Sailors who lived by this tried to nap every chance they got, curling up in corners for 10 minutes at a time, believing it would build up a kind of sleep reserve. Whether it worked or not is up for debate, but you've seen a man fall asleep mid-conversation, mouth open, eyes glassy. Maybe it's more of a survival strategy than a science. You lose track of time again. The stars shift. A gull cries somewhere in the dark. You blink and realize your knees have locked. You shake them loose. You look around. No threats, no ships. No ghosts as far as you can tell. Just sea, endless and hungry. When your relief finally comes, a wiry man with one good eye and the patience of a saint. You nod, step back, and stumble toward the hatch. Your feet barely work. Your joints crack. Your breath fogs in the air as you descend again into the belly of the ship. Back into the stench, back to the heat of sleeping bodies, back to your damp plank beside Gerard, who hasn't moved an inch. You curl back up, cloak over your face, hands tucked into your chest, and pray for a few more minutes of sleep before someone calls your name again. And maybe, just maybe, the sea will let you have them. You wake to the sound of water. Not the usual comforting hush of the waves against the hull, but a new kind of water. A drip with rhythm, a splash with purpose, and the unmistakable glug of something collecting where it shouldn't. You don't move at first. Your eyes stay closed. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's just the sea playing tricks again. But then a second splash follows the first, closer this time, and your eyes snap open in the dark. It's still night, or at least the dim lantern glow hasn't changed. A few of the crew are asleep, limbs twisted into impossible angles, cloaks clinging to their bodies like damp burial shrouds. The air is thicker than usual, heavy, muggy, and the smell, well, it's gotten worse, which you didn't think was possible. You shift slowly and feel something cold press against your hip. Water, not just condensation or a lazy drip from a loose beam. A small pool has formed where your body was. You sit up with a grunt, wipe your hands on your tunic, and look down. There's a shallow puddle stretching across the floor now, hucking the edges of the hull. You tap your foot in it, definitely seawater, and rising. The thought you've been trained to fear slinks into your mind. Leak. You're not the only one who notices. Another sailor stirs nearby, mutters a curse under his breath, then scurries off toward the bulkhead, bare feet slapping against wet wood. A moment later, you hear low voices. Concerned, not panicked. But that could change fast. You swing your legs over the side of your plank, plant your boots in the puddle and stand. Cold water seeps instantly through the soles. Someone nearby shouts for a bucket line. It's not a full emergency yet, but everyone knows how quickly things can go from mildly annoying to hope you know how to swim in mail. You stumble forward, grab a bucket, and fall into the rhythm. Scoop, toss, pass. It's a clumsy line. Men half asleep, blur-eyed, shivering, but it works. The water isn't gushing in. It's a slow leak, probably from a seam strained by the earlier storm. Still, you're below the waterline and no one wants to find out how much the ship can take before it becomes a coffin. There's something about this moment, about bailing out your own bed, that captures the true joy of medieval sailing. You thought sleeping was hard before. Try doing it in a space that might turn into a bathtub at any second. The ship doesn't just rock you, it reminds you that you are entirely at its mercy. Eventually, after what feels like an hour of cold splashes and aching shoulders, someone plugs the leak, or at least slows it. The puddle stops growing. The bucket line dissolves. You slump back toward your spot, now damp in a whole new way. You look at your plank. It glistens in the lantern light. You could wring it out and water a garden, but you lie down anyway because what else is there to do? The sea doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't pause to give you time to dry off or to find a fresh blanket. Not that you have one. It just keeps rolling, groaning, and whispering things through the hull that make your spine tingle. As you try to settle again, you realize just how loud the ship is at night. It isn't quiet even when no one's speaking. There's the constant creak of wood. A sound so regular it becomes background noise until it changes, and then your stomach clenches. There's the gentle slap of waves against the hull, the groan of the mass swaying slightly in the wind, and the high metallic ping of loose rigging somewhere above. And then there's the truly terrifying sound. Nothing. Every once in a while, everything goes still. No creaks, no water, no footsteps above. That's when everyone instinctively holds their breath, because silence means tension, a pause before something breaks. And in those rare, uncanny moments, the ship almost feels like it's listening. You pull your cloak tighter, shift on your damp bed, and try to force your eyes shut. But your ears are awake now, cataloguing every groan, every drip, every whisper of rope. You're not imagining them. Those soft sounds, they're real. They echo down through the beams like breath through old lungs. Some sailors say the ship has a voice that if you learn to listen, you can hear her mood. Tonight, she sounds annoyed, not furious, not panicked, just irritated, like she didn't appreciate the storm and she definitely didn't enjoy taking on water. You settle again, awkwardly curled into a C shape, careful to keep your boots on the driest patch of plank. Gerard hasn't stirred at all. Unbelievable. Man could sleep through a Kraken attack. His snores rise and fall like a baritone tide. It should be annoying, but right now it's comforting, familiar. The hull cacks again. The leak you hope is really sealed. You'll find out for sure in the morning, assuming there is one. You drift in and out of consciousness. Not sleep, not really. Just a state of suspension where your body stops screaming for rest and starts accepting exhaustion as the new normal. Tonight's historical note. Leaks were so common on medieval ships that many vessels had permanent crew assigned just to manage them. The build crew, they were called, men whose job it was to live in the lowest, dampest part of the ship and keep it from drowning from the inside. Imagine that. Your entire life spent crouched in the dark, surrounded by rotting timbers and ankle-deep water, with only rats and bad air for company. Compared to them, your plank and your leaky corner almost feel luxurious. There's some debate among scholars about just how watertight these vessels really were. Some say the caulking methods, pitch and oakum packed into seams, were surprisingly effective. Others argue that every crossing was a game of how long until we sink. Judging by tonight's puddle, you're leaning toward the latter. You hear a rat nearby skittering across a beam. It pauses, sniffs, scampers on. You feel your own breath slow. The ship groans again, but softer this time, like a sigh. The sea outside has calmed, and somehow, despite the wet, despite the noise, despite the fact that your bed tried to become a swimming pool, you begin to fade again. The cold is still there, but your body has stopped resisting it. Your brain gives in just enough, and the last thing you hear before slipping away is the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water somewhere in the dark. Not a threat, just a lullaby. Somewhere in the dark, someone's humming. It's low and tuneless at first. More of a murmur than a melody, but it threads through the air like smoke. You're not sure how long it's been going on. Maybe it started when you drifted off, or maybe it only just began crawling out of the corners of the ship like a strange kind of fog. It doesn't sound like fear, more like habit, a nighttime ritual. You shift on your plank, trying not to draw attention. And listen, it's Allah. Of course, it's Allah. Always the one with some odd habit to keep his sanity intact. He's the kind of man who talks to the ship, pats the mast like a dog, and swears the cat understands Portuguese. And now he hums himself to sleep in the middle of the hold. Like the rest of you aren't here trying not to lose your minds in the dark. Still, you don't hate it. You've learned that sailors, especially the ones who've done this for years, develop nighttime rituals to survive. Some pray, others wrap their cloaks a specific way, left over right, like they're binding their luck into the folds. A few whisper old songs or mutter stories to themselves, barely audible above the creaking wood. Alan hums. It's just one more way of telling the dark I'm still here. You don't get me yet. You lie still listening. There's a rhythm to it. Not quite a lullaby, not quite a sea shanty, just a repeated humming loop weaving between the sighs and snores of the others. The ship rocks gently now, mercifully tame. The storm seems far behind. You can almost forget how violently you were being flung across the deck just hours ago. You take stock of yourself. Bones sore, feet damp, eyes gritty, lice always. But you're alive and at sea. That counts for more than you'd think. You shift a bit, careful not to wake Gerard, whose arm is now draped over the edge of his barrel pillow, like a dislocated puppet. His breathing is even and deep, the kind that suggests he'll wake up either completely rested or completely confused. Sleep is a luxury here, but you're learning that even the act of trying to sleep is a ritual. There's a whole series of tiny gestures you repeat each night to coax your body into surrendering. The way you fold your cloak, the position you wedge your boots, which shoulder you lie on. You've been through it so many times now, your body does half the work before your brain catches up. Tonight, you go through the motions again. Tuck the elbow here. Breathe through the nose. Ignore the rat that just made a sound like it dropped something. This is where the sailor's rituals come in handy. Not just for comfort, but for sanity. Some men refuse to sleep without touching wood. Others won't sleep under a beam, afraid it might splinter and crush them in the night. One man sleeps with a dried sprig of rosemary tied into his belt, claiming it wards off bad dreams. Another rubs salt on his boots before lying down, mumbling something about sea spirits. It all seems absurd until you're out here for weeks, until you've gone too long without proper rest, and the darkness presses in too close, and the ship feels just a bit too alive. Then you start doing things you never thought you would. You tie knots in your cloak a certain way. You whisper nonsense to the lantern. You hum like Alan does because it reminds you you're still in control. There's a fringe belief among medieval sailors, passed along in hushed tones and half laughs, that sleep is when the sea tries to steal you. Not by drowning, not by wave or wind, but by reaching into your dreams and unraveling you from the inside. They say you can hear her sometimes calling your name through the wood grain, that if you fall too deep into sleep, she can pull you into the water without ever touching your body. That's why some sailors refuse to sleep alone, even if there was room. You needed someone beside you, a body, a tether, someone to shake you awake if your breathing slowed or your dreams got too loud. Not because they loved you or even liked you, but because if you went under, they might be next. It's a ridiculous story, of course, just sailors' talk. But tonight, when you close your eyes and the ship cacks like a voice and Alan's humming grows fainter, you wonder how far off it really is. There's debate among historians about just how much structure there was to nighttime routines on ships like this. Some evidence points to strict order, evening meals, cleaning rotations, prayer. Others suggest it was more of a free-for-all, a desperate attempt to do whatever made the night bearable. What's certain is that ritual, no matter how small, became a form of resistance, a way to reclaim a little sliver of control in a world dominated by unpredictability. You feel it yourself. Even something as simple as breathing in time, with the ship's rocking, becomes a kind of ceremony. You sync with it. Let it carry you. You let go. Alan stopped humming now. The hold is quiet again, except for the usual sounds. The crack of the hull shifting slightly, the groan of wood rubbing against damp nails, the occasional snore or cough. The lantern swings softly, casting long, lazy shadows across the beams. You drift not all the way, but enough. Enough to feel your limbs relax. Enough to let the edges of thought blur. The sea can't quite reach you. Not tonight. You've done your rituals, you've made your peace, you've kept your rhythm. You dream of things you barely remember. Your mother's hands, a warm loaf of bread, the crunch of snow under real boots. The dream doesn't last. It never does. But it carries you just far enough to forget for a while that you're wrapped in wet wool surrounded by rodents, and possibly sharing air with a ghost or two. And when you wake again, it'll be to the smell of boiled oats, someone stepping on your foot, or the call for the next watch. But for now, for these few precious moments, you sleep not in spite of the storm or the noise or the filth, but through them. And that, on a medieval ship in the middle of nowhere, is nothing short of a miracle. You dream in colors that don't exist. Everything is hazy and strange, the sky shaped like a sail, the clouds like puffed-up seabirds, the ground soft and shifting beneath your feet. Not dirt, not wood, but something like bread dough. You're walking barefoot, warm. The sun is there, not hidden behind a veil of mist, but really there, gold and wide and generous. Somewhere nearby, someone is singing a tavern song, You almost remember the words. Then the floor lurches under you, and the dream collapses like a rotten plank. You wake with a start. Your face pressed against the same wet cloak you've been using as a pillow for weeks now. It smells like salt and sour breath and wool that's been chewed on by regret. Your limbs protest as you shift upright, and your back cracks so loudly your surprised Gerard doesn't sit up and yell at you. But no, he's still asleep, drooling slightly, muttering something about geese. The usual. You scrub your face with your hands and take a shaky breath. The hold is dark and quiet. A few other sailors are rustling in their sleep, but no one's moving much yet. You should be grateful. It's one of those rare moments where you're not being screamed at or rained on or covered in someone else's vomit. And for just a moment, you sit in it. That heavy stillness, your thoughts still tangled in the strange dream. It's not the first time you've had one like that. And you're not alone. Almost every sailor you know has weird dreams out here. Not nightmares necessarily, though those happen too, but dreams that feel more real than reality. Vivid, sensory, full of movement and noise and warmth. The exact opposite of ship life. You think it's your brain trying to remember what it used to be like to live on solid land. Or maybe it's your body begging you to take it somewhere that smells less like fermented despair. There's a rumor among the older sailors that the sea messes with your mind after a while. Not just the salt or the motion, but the sheer longevity of being surrounded by the same things day after day. The same timbers, the same waves, the same faces, the same smells. It tricks your brain into dreaming harder, deeper, almost like it's rebelling. You can't have comfort during the day. Fine, here it is, hidden in the folds of your subconscious. But you'll have to pay for it later. And you do. Waking up is cruel. Coming back from dreams of warmth and open skies to this dim, leaking, rat-infested barrel of misery is like being dropped into cold water. You try not to let it get to you, but it does. The historical record on sailors' dreams is thin. Hardly surprising. Nobody was carving their nightmares into the ship's log between shifts of hauling rope and bailing water. But from what little has survived, letters, journals, passing remarks, we know the dreams were intense and often strangely domestic. Men dreaming of wives they'd barely known, of dinners they'd never eaten, of children they hadn't yet met, as if the sea had forced their minds to build something soft and warm just to fight the cold. And then there were the weird ones, like the ones Alan swears he has every time the moon is high. Dreams where the ship is alive, breathing like a beast with sails for wings and ropes that tangle around you like fingers. Or the cook who once dreamed he was a gull soaring so high he saw the curve of the earth only to wake up in the middle of the night and tried to jump off the stern. He broke his ankle. Never did tell us what the view was like. You've had your fair share too, that one where you were buried in grain, unable to breathe. The one where you were standing in a dry tavern but couldn't order a drink because your hands had turned to hooks. And now this newest one, the dough floor, and the sun, and the singing. What did it mean? Probably nothing. Probably just your brain trying to remember what dry felt like. You glance around the hold again. It's quieter than usual. A few men have curled deeper into their cloaks. Someone is whispering a prayer. The lantern's wick is low, sputtering. Outside, the wind sounds different, softer, but not gone. You can hear the sails fluttering like tired lungs. You lie back again, not because you think you'll sleep, but because you have to try. Sleep is the currency of survival out here. You steal what you can. Your plank is still damp. Your shoulders ache. You shift your weight, press your eyes shut and wait. You wonder what it would be like to sleep in a real bed again with a mattress, not straw or burlap sacks. A thick blanket, clean sheets, maybe even a pillow that doesn't smell like wet wool and roasted despair. You wonder if you'll be able to sleep when that day comes, or if your body will be too used to the sway, too conditioned to discomfort. You try to imagine it, the weight of a blanket, the soft press of a mattress, the hush of silence that isn't laced with groans and drips and muttering. It seems almost alien, like dreaming of another life entirely. And still, against all odds, your body begins to give in again. Another sailor mutters nearby. His voice rises slightly, unintelligible at first, then clear. I said, "Get off the boat." His tone is panicked. His head thrashes. You open one eye and watch as his arms jerk and his legs kick out. Sleepwalking, dream fighting. You've seen it before, he shouts now, loud enough that it echoes against the hull. A few men stir. Someone curses. Another throws a boot. The dreaming man jolts upright, confused, eyes wide and glassy. You lie still, just watching. This is the price of those vivid dreams. They're gifts, yes, but also curses. They trick your body into thinking it's free, safe, warm. And then your body wakes up and lashes out against the lie. The man rubs his face, breathes hard, and lies back down without a word. You close your eyes again, not to sleep but to disappear. Just for a little while, just until the next shout, or the next splash, or the next rat decides your foot looks like a decent path to take. You hope the next dream is boring. Just a field, maybe a rock to sit on, something still. No singing, no flying, and just quiet. It starts with a footstep, not a real one. Your eyes are closed, but your body knows the difference. Real footsteps on deck have weight. They thud and shift, the boots scraping against soaked boards in familiar rhythms. This one is dream wrong. It's weightless, sharp, like something stepping not on the ship, but through it. You feel your whole body twitch, your ears perk before your eyes open. You're not fully awake, but the sensation creeps in fast. A kind of creeping awareness that slides in through the corners of your consciousness like a fog. You're dreaming again, you think. But something's off. It feels too real, too cold. You try to open your eyes, but your eyelids resist. Your limbs are heavy. You're lying flat, face toward the hull, and something in your brain is saying, "Don't move. Don't move. Not yet." Then you hear it again. A step lighter than any sailor's foot, and then another closer. You force your eyes open this time, your lashes sticky from sea air and sleep. You're still in the hold. The lantern is out now, burned down sometime during the last stretch of unconsciousness. Moonlight filters in through a narrow hatch above, casting a soft glow across the beams. You glance around. Everyone else is asleep or pretending to be. Allaire's rolled onto his back, mouth slightly open. Gerard is snoring again, soft this time. The rest are scattered, unmoving, cloaked in their own nightly rituals. But something's different. You don't know what it is until you realize your heart is racing. Your pulse is pounding against your ears like fists against the hull. Your body is reacting to something your mind hasn't caught up with. Then softly, something brushes your foot. You don't scream, you don't even move, you just freeze. Because that wasn't a rat. That wasn't the usual little pawed shuffle across your boots or a tail flicking past your heel. That felt like fingers. Cold ones, thin, deliberate. You look down slowly. Nothing. Just the darkness. Just your own filthy boots resting in their damp groove against the side of your plank. Nothing else. But your body doesn't believe what your eyes are telling it. Every hair on your arms is standing upright. Your skin prickles with the unmistakable electricity of not being alone. And not just surrounded by sleeping crewmates, but something else. Something that doesn't belong. You sit up slowly. Your joints complain. Your breath stays shallow. You glance around again. A few men shift in their sleep, but no one else stirs. You're the only one awake now, and the hold is quiet in that very specific way that isn't actually quiet. It's waiting. You've heard stories, of course, every sailor has, about the ones who sleep too close to the edge and disappear in the night, their blankets left behind like shed skin, about the ones who sit up screaming at nothing, trying to claw at shadows only they can see, about the ones who start walking, eyes open, body moving, mind still dreaming, and who don't stop until they walk straight off the deck into the sea. You never thought you'd see one until now. You hear another step, this time not near you across the hold. You turn your head slowly, and that's when you see him. Or at least you see someone. He's standing near the beam beside the ladder, half in shadow, half in moonlight. Barefoot, shirt open, hair clinging to his cheeks like wet string. His eyes are wide, fixed on something you can't see. His lips are moving, whispering something too faint to hear. One hand reaches forward, then falls. His knees wobble. He's not fully awake, that much is clear. You don't know his name. He's one of the newer men, joined a few ports ago. Barely spoke a word since. You think he was a farmer before. You think he said something once about missing a dog. You've seen him sleep like this before. Shallow and restless, eyes twitching behind his lids. But this is different. He's not just dreaming, he's moving. And you know where he's going. You rise quickly, every muscle aching in protest. You move as quietly as you can, dodging scattered boots and barrels, skimming past men curled into themselves like drying seaweed. The sleepwalker reaches the bottom of the ladder. He lifts one foot, then the next. Slow, deliberate. You catch him by the arm just as he plants his foot on the third rung. He jolts violently, gasping like he's surfaced from underwater. His eyes snap to yours, wide, unfocused, full of the deep kind of panic that doesn't come from this world. He starts to scream. You clap your hand over his mouth and pull him back, murmuring something low and calm you don't even recognize as your own voice. His body shudders, then goes slack. He slumps into you, breathing fast, sweat pouring down his face like he's just run a mile. A few of the other men stir now. One groans, another mutters, "What now?" and rolls over. You help the dreamwalker back to his plank. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His eyes say everything. Whatever he saw, whatever he dreamed, it didn't stay in his head. Not entirely. And suddenly, the stories don't seem so far-fetched. The ones about men pulled by voices in their sleep. About dreams so vivid they become commands. You remember what the old boats once said? If you sleep too close to the sea, she'll invite you down. There's scholarly argument about whether sleepwalking was common among medieval sailors. No logs mention it. No captains wrote about it. But why would they? Who would admit their crew was wandering around like ghosts in the night? It's not the kind of thing that fits neatly into official records. Still, one fringe theory suggests that the rhythmic motion of the ship, the sensory deprivation, and the constant stress created a perfect recipe for what they now call parasomnas. Sleepwalking, night terrors, and even shared hallucinations. Spend enough time rocking on the water and your brain stops trusting what's real. Back on your plank, you try to settle again. Your heart is still racing. The man beside you is curled into himself now, shivering, eyes open, but empty. You don't ask him what he saw, you don't want to know. Instead, you wrap your cloak tighter. You wedge your boots into the crook of the wall so you won't slip if you need to jump up again. And you stare at the ceiling. You're not sure you'll sleep again tonight, because now you're listening. Not to the rats, not to the creaks, not even to Gerard's occasional goose noises. You're listening for footsteps. Morning, if you can call it that, arrives slowly. There's no sudden burst of light or cheerful birdsong. Just a gradual shift in the quality of the dark. A subtle easing that turns black into grey. Grey into something a little less oppressive. Above the hatch lets in a pale sliver of sky. Dull and colourless. Like the underbelly of a fish. You open your eyes not because you're rested, but because the discomfort has piled too high to ignore. The first thing you notice is the itching. Your neck, your wrists, behind your ears. Everywhere your skin meets fabric feels like it's been attacked by invisible needles. You scratch and it helps for a second. Then the itch just moves, traveling like a mischievous spirit from one joint to the next. You know what it is. Everyone does. The ship has become a paradise for lice. You sit up slowly, feeling your joints click like old hinges. Your cloak is wrapped around your shoulders, soaked through from both sweat and mist. You don't remember pulling it tighter during the night, but at some point your body must have tried to cocoon itself. The wool is heavy and rough, and as you peel it back from your skin, you notice little clusters of something near the seams. Tiny dots, brownish moving, lice eggs, perfect. You sigh long and slow, like you're trying to exhale your entire soul. You reach up, scratch behind your ear again and look down at your tunic. It's no better. The linen is stained, stretched out, crusted with salt, and you hope just dirt. You give it a sniff and immediately regret it. This is your sleepwear, your workwear, your everything wear. It hasn't been changed in weeks, washed. Not even close. There's nowhere to do that. If you want to clean your clothes, you beat them with a rope or shake them out into the wind and hope nature takes pity. But even then, they never dry. Not completely. The ship is too damp, too alive. Some men sleep bare-chested, hoping to air out. You tried that once. Within 5 minutes you were shivering so hard your teeth hurt. And by morning, you had new sores along your back where the planks had dug into your skin. You've worn your tunic every hour since. Now it clings to you like a second skin. An itchy, disease-ridden, wool-laced second skin that smells faintly like cheese left in the sun. You glance around the hold. Most of the crew is waking now, stirring slowly like earthworms after a storm. Groans echo through the space. Someone sneezes wetly into the dark. Another man swears at his boots. Apparently a rat chewed through the leather again. Typical. Gerard naturally is still asleep. You consider kicking him. Just a little nudge with your toe. But what's the point? He'll wake up when it's least convenient and complain the loudest. Some things are predictable. You take a moment to inspect the rest of your gear. Your socks are soaked again. No surprise. The left one has a hole forming near the heel. A fresh gift from yesterday's shift. You press your toes against it and feel a chill rush in like a whisper from the sea. And then there's the blanket. Calling it a blanket is generous. It's more of a rag. Once, long ago, it was probably thick wool, tightly woven, and dyed a rich navy or forest green. Now it's mostly grey, threadbare, stiff with salt and stiff in general. You run your fingers over it and feel patches that have crusted over from something. Not sure what. You stopped asking weeks ago. You wrap it around your shoulders anyway, or it stinks. You want to be grossed out, disgusted, offended even. But honestly, it's just normal now. This is how you sleep. This is how everyone sleeps. Swaddled in damp wool. Wearing clothes that haven't known sunlight or soap in months. Battling an army of a life so bold they probably have a chain of command. One of the younger sailors, the one with the unfortunate facial fuzz, scratches at his stomach and mutters, "I think they're building a house in my Navy L." No one laughs. Not because it's not funny, but because we're all wondering if it might be true. A quick historical note for your sanity. Yes, medieval sailors slept in their clothes. And yes, they were almost always infested with something. Lice, fleas, even mites. There's documentation of entire ships being fumigated after they docked, of course, because the infestation was so bad. Some sailors tried remedies. Vinegar rinses, ash rubbed into the scalp, even cold seawater baths during calm days. But out here, in the middle of a voyage, those luxuries are just dreams. The reality, you itch and then you itch some more and then you find peace in scratching. And then there's the fringe fact, because of course there is. Some believed lice were good luck. That as long as they stayed on your body, you'd stay alive. The idea being lice won't live on corpses. If they're sticking around, so are you. It's disgusting. It's illogical. And it's exactly the kind of logic that takes root when you're half mad from sleeplessness and salt exposure. You stand up, stretching your arms until your shoulders pop. Your cloak falls around your knees like a damp curtain. The smell rises with you, musky, oily, alive. You scratch behind your neck again. Then finally you move toward the ladder. It's time for the morning slog. Eat something vaguely edible. Take your shift and pretend your body isn't quietly falling apart. The deck above is grey and cold, but the wind is calm. That's something. The ocean stretches out in every direction, like a blanket of slate. No ships, no land, just sky and water, and the groan of rope swaying lazily in the morning breeze. You breathe deep even though the air smells like rope tar and fish guts. At least it's fresh. And then you feel it again. That itch lower this time, somewhere personal. You sigh long and defeated, of course. You mutter a prayer to St. Elmo. Roll your eyes toward the sky and scratch. This, you think, is medieval luxury. You don't expect to be chosen for the midnight watch. It's usually handed off to the greenest of the green, or those who made some offhand insult to the captain's dog or the cook's stew. But tonight your name gets called, and before you can protest or fake a limp or both, you're already being shoved toward the ladder with a lantern in one hand and a half-frozen chunk of bread in the other. Midnight watch it is. Climbing the ladder is harder than usual. Your legs ache from the day's work. Your shoulders are sore from hauling rigging, and your arms still itch from that suspicious patch of something growing in the sleeve seam of your tunic. But you drag yourself upward step by splintered step until the night sky opens up above you. Vast and quiet and endless and cold. So cold. The sea air hits your face like a slap. Not a cruel one. More like a bored reminder that comfort isn't part of the deal here. You step out onto the deck, boots thudding softly against the planks. It's not stormy tonight. No rain, no crashing waves, just the steady groan of the ship, the flap of slack sails and the whisper of wind slipping past your ears. You exhale, breath steaming, and settle in near the starboard rail. The sea is vast and ink black beneath the moon, smooth like oil, glinting faintly where the stars scatter their reflection across it. No waves tonight, just slow rolls beneath the surface like a great beast breathing in its sleep. This is what passes for a gift out here. A calm night, a sky full of stars, and 4 hours of silence where no one's screaming or vomiting or bleeding. You lean against the rail, fold your arms over your chest, and let your shoulders settle into the rhythm of the rocking ship. It takes time to realize how quiet everything is. You've spent weeks surrounded by noise, the shriek of wind through ropes, the pounding of rain, the constant bickering below deck, the rats in the walls, the dripping from above. Even sleep is loud out here. So this moment, this rare sprawling stillness is so alien it makes you tense at first. Your ears keep reaching for sound, for movement, for signs of something going wrong. But nothing happens, and slowly your shoulders drop. But there's something else here tonight. The stars. You don't often get to really see them. But now with the clouds gone and the sea calm, they explode across the sky in dizzying numbers. They don't twinkle like they do in stories. They shimmer, yes, but mostly they burn. White and blue and yellow. Some flicker like dying candles. Others just sit there, bold and unmoving. You try to count them, you fail instantly. There are too many. It's beautiful and unnerving, because the longer you stare, the more it feels like they're staring back. You shift your weight, wrap your cloak tighter around you, and try to pick out the few constellations you recognize. The hunter, the dragon's tail, maybe the sea crown, though that one might just be a cluster of particularly confident dots. One of the older sailors, Henrik, once tried to teach you how to navigate by the stars. You forgot most of it, but you remember the way he said it. The stars are honest. They'll always tell you where you are, even if you don't want to know. Now you get what he meant. You breathe in through your nose. The air smells faintly of brine and old robe. Not bad. Better than the hold. Better than waking up with a mouthful of wool, and definitely better than dreaming about food, and then waking up chewing your own sleeve. This is peace in its weird cold temporary form. And then just to ruin it, you think. You think about how long you've been out here. You think about how little you've slept. You think about how your body is adapted to discomfort, like it was training for a contest no one wants to win. You think about how there's no bed in your life right now. Just a plank, a bucket, and a set of nightmares that rotate between drowning, starving, and watching a rat crawl into your boot and not crawl out. You think about home, whatever that means anymore. And then you stop thinking. You let it go. You look at the stars again. Let them fill your brain with nothing. This is the part of the night watch that makes sense. The stillness, the breathing ship beneath your boots, the sky above. You can almost pretend you're alone out here. Just you and the sea and whatever's out there in the dark. But of course you're not. Footsteps thud behind you. Soft, slow, deliberate. You tense, then glance over your shoulder. It's the cat, the ship's cat. No one really knows where she came from. Probably smuggled aboard for rat control. She doesn't have a name. Some call her Widow. Others call her Nellie or Ghost or just the cat. She's jet black, missing a bit of one ear, and walks like she owns the ship, which arguably she does. Tonight she hops onto the railing beside you, tail curling neatly around her paws, eyes narrowed against the wind. Evening, you say softly, because why not? She flicks one ear, but doesn't otherwise respond. She's staring out at the sea just like you, watching, listening, maybe judging. There's a fringe theory among seafarers that cats can see spirits, that they protect ships from things men can't detect. Bad omens, storm curses, drowned souls. You've never been especially superstitious, but on nights like this, with the stars above and the water whispering below, you start to wonder. The cat doesn't move for a long while, just sits there, calm, collected, unbothered. You envy her. She doesn't need a blanket, doesn't need to explain herself, doesn't itch or get shouted at. She just is. Eventually she hops down, strolls the deck like a queen, and disappears behind a coil of rope. You stay by the rail, eyes drifting skyward. The wind hums through the rigging, low and steady, like a lullaby plucked from old strings. For once, you're not tired. Not yet cold has numbed your feet. Silence has wrapped your thoughts. The stars have pulled you just far enough away to breathe. You can't sleep standing like some do, but you understand why they try. You close your eyes for a second, just to exhale. You're barely below deck before she finds you again, the ship's cat, brushing your shin like she owns the place. Which, frankly, she does. Every plank, rope coil, half-rotted barley sack, and leaky cod barrel, she's mapped them all. You're a visitor on her ship. She pauses, tail flicking with the disdain of a noble toward a sloppy servant. You nod. She does not acknowledge you. Back in your damp corner, Gerard snores like a man choking on a whistle. You step over him and fold onto your plank. It's wetter than before. Water never sleeps. It just seeps. Cloak up, boots on. Taking them off would be an invitation to fungus. The cat springs onto your ribs without asking. Curls there like you're a mildly useful stove. She smells of fish guts and sawdust, which is to say, like you, balance achieved. For a moment, it's almost peaceful. Her purr is a soft engine idling in the dark. Your breath falls into step with it. You nearly forget you're on wet wood beside a man who smells like pickled onions and abandoned dreams. Truth is, she's better company than most. She doesn't complain, sermonize, sing in her sleep, or wake swinging at shadows. She just exists. Indifferent. Fluff with one yellow eye opening. When something edible crosses the horizon, ship's cats sit high in the fee, weird pecking order of life at sea. You'd think rats would rule down here, and there are plenty. But one flash of her eyes, one swipe of that paw, and the scurrying stops. Unspoken queen of the lower deck, feared by rats, tolerated by men, half worshipped by a few who've seen her do things that don't add up. Alain swears he watched her leap from forecastle to mainmast in a single jump. Others say she disappears for days and reappears spotless. No one feeds her. Yet she's never thin, never soaked, never shivering. Always dry, always watching. You've started to think she's more than pest control, maybe guardian, maybe spy. Maybe something old that refused to die ashore and hitched a ride to see what the sea would offer. There are hard men who won't sail without a cat, not for rats, but to keep the ship's soul balanced. Superstition, sure, but out here what isn't? There's even a fringe belief that cats see ahead, not crystal balls, but tells the way they vanish before a fall overboard, or stare at a place only they can see. Once you watched her crouch at the mast and hiss at nothing. That night the rigging snapped mid-sail. No one was hurt. No one forgot. Tonight she's quiet, ears soft, breath slow. Good sign. You shift. Your side aches. Your hips numb. You can feel individual knots in the plank pressing into muscle. Legs tingle, fingers itch where the lice commute their nightly routes. Still, you rest. The lantern gutters low, a clank above. Watch change. Not yours. Thank the gods. The cat sighs, an actual sigh, and settles deeper. Just as you fall into the warm fog before sleep, she stiffens. Head up. Ears pricked. Both of you stare at a dark corner by a half-open barrel. Nothing there, only shadow. One low growl. Then she curls back up and closes her eyes. You don't ask, you don't look again. If she decided it isn't worth chasing, that's good enough. You turn your face away and pull the cloak tight. When you wake hours later, she's gone, so is the chill. Only a faint warmth in the wood and a single black hair on your cloak remain. By now you can map the hold by sound. Who wheezes, who mutters, who breathes so softly you wonder if they've slipped away. But tonight is different. You lie half awake. Sour cloak around your shoulders, one boot on, the other lost to the foot of the plank, and you hear it. The snoring has fallen in sync. It starts slow, a drone from the bow, joined by a second line, offbeat at first, then a third, a fourth. Soon the whole hold vibrates with nasal chords and throat bass, lifting and falling together. You stay still, listening. It's a ship-shaped instrument played by the worst orchestra imaginable. Everyone brings a part. Gerard's uneven honk that skips a beat. Alain's whistle slicing through like a panicked bird. Thomas's deep boot echo rumble, accidental and hypnotic. The chorus swells. You can't sleep through it, yet it comforts you. Your body falls into its pace without permission. The closest thing to harmony this crew will ever make. A lumbering lullaby of congestion, exhaustion and failing hygiene, absurd and oddly tender. They've been soaked, bruised, bitten and starved of dignity. Now they sleep like children in a nursery of mildew and salted timber. The snore proves they're alive. Safe for the moment, too tired to care. So are you. You roll to your side, ear against the planks. The ship's creak keeps time. A wave slaps the hull, percussion. A rat scuttles past, tiny castanets. You think of music halls, of childhood lullabies, of a warm hand on your back. It all stitches together in some impossible way. In the dim, you scan their faces, eyes closed, bodies curled or sprawled, heads on sacks or coils or nothing. This won't last, the captain could shout. A squall could hit. Someone could wake swinging, but for now they snore. You almost laugh, softly, not enough to break the choir. You've cursed these men, hated their stink, their scrapping, their constant noise. But like this, stripped to fatigue, you feel a quiet affection you'll never speak aloud. There's a sailor's notion, rarely written but often told. A crew needs to be in tune to survive, not musically, physically. Bodies working, eating, resting to the same beat. Sea songs for hauling and heaving weren't just tradition, they were engineering. Keep rhythm. Keep the ship right, lose rhythm. Everything phrase. Maybe this chorus is the body's echo of that law. We're still here. We're still together. Old hands whisper the sea can hear it, and show mercy when the crew sleeps in. Rhythm, you don't believe it exactly, you want to. You match their breath, let it carry yours. You stop resisting the noise, and let it wash over you. Limbs loosen. Back eases. Pain fades to the background. You drift, not fully asleep, but far enough to forget yourself. The line between you and them, ship and sea, blurs. The rhythm holds you like a tide. Then nausea arrives like a thought that won't leave. At first a hum, then a twist, then a bag of eels in your gut. Lantern flicker. Half light. The choir has come apart. Some still wheeze, others stir, but you only hear the churn. You sit up. The world sways wrong. Tilt, roll, pause just long enough to trick your balance, then tilt again. You inhale. Mistake. The hold's perfume of sweat, salt, damp wood, and 100 boots punches you square in the stomach. Hand to belly. Cold sweat blooms. Seasick again. You thought you were past it. You were proud of those sea legs. Now, welcome back to square one. You try slow breathing. Ginger once made your vomit taste like spiced regret. A sip of water sloshes like a wave in a barrel. You gag, hand to mouth, and lurch for the corner everyone knows and no one names. The pit. You make it. Barely. Then heaving, coughing, ribs protesting. A rat bolts offended. You wipe your mouth on a sleeve already lacquered in salt. This kind of sickness comes in sets. Recede, return with interest. Sleep deprived, your body doesn't know what it wants. Rest, relief, a new stomach. You stay where you are, slumped against a beam, breath shallow. Others are green around the edges, though they hide it better. Alain chews something sacred he refuses to share, probably moss with a mythology. People forget, seasickness doesn't vanish when you lie down or pray into a bucket. It can linger for days, leave for hours, then ambush you when you need your wits. Medieval hulls rolled worse than modern ships, high, rounded bottoms, no real stabilization. In storms, they're tumbling barrels. In calms, they still wander under wind and current. There's an old joke theory that captains hired by stomach didn't puke on boarding. You're in probably false, perfectly true in spirit. Fringe belief says the sea punishes the unaccepted, twisting guts until she's satisfied you're worthy or gone. Men tossed coins, crumbs, hair overboard when no one looked, begging mercy. You haven't tossed anything yet. You consider Gerard's sock. Eventually the nausea eases enough for sight. You stand, swaying, and stagger back to your plank. Gerard sleeps with his mouth open. You loathe him with holy purity. Careful now, you lie on your side and breathe with the roll, not against it. Ride the motion. Let your gut float like a loose knot. Swear off food forever. Vow to assault the next bowl of stew. You burp. Survive it. Progress. Someone once said the sea has a mind. Whoever it was had lost too many friends to the inexplicable. Tonight, her mind is restless. Wind rising. Not a storm yet, but something building. You feel it in the deck boards and in the sails' beastly groan. The air tastes metallic. Your teeth ache. The cat is nowhere. Bad sign. Cloak tight. Calm gone. You accept you won't sleep. The ship creaks like it's about to confess. Pressure thickens in the hold. So you listen. Near the forebeam, two men whisper, half story, half confession. She carved it in the mast, one says, keeps the storm off. Last ship that ignored the marks went down in half a night. You edge closer like you aren't. Off watch, listening is half the work. It's Alain, of course, hunched. Over a rope he's not tying, entertaining two younger hands haloed by lantern glow. So you don't sleep through a cursed night, he rasps. Not without a mark. What mark, one asks. Any. Alain shrugs. Circle. Star. The name of someone you trust. Cut it in your beam, the rail, your own hand if you must. So a doodle keeps the sea away. The boy tries a laugh and doesn't find one. I'm saying, Alain's voice sharpens, you don't bargain with the sea, she bargains with you while you're dreaming, or worse. That shuts them up for a second. Then the younger one, Jack maybe, leans forward and asks, you ever dream of her? The question hangs. You've heard that one before. It's not about the sea in general, it's about her. The woman in white, the one who stands at the bow during rough waters, the one who sings when the wind goes still, the one who walks into your dreams and asks you questions you don't know how to answer. You don't know if she's real, but you've heard her name whispered too many times not to wonder. Alan doesn't answer right away. Then he says, once. The boys lean in. She had seaweed in her hair, he murmurs, and her eyes were the color of anchor rust. Said I'd sleep forever if I kissed her. Woke up soaked in seawater and blood. My own nose, I think. Someone lets out a low whistle. You lie back on your plank again, eyes half closed now. The tale's taken root. It'll be passed along now, mutating, growing, until half the crew's carving circles into their bunks and sleeping with their knives under their pillows. It sounds like superstition. It is superstition, but you'll be honest, you carved your own mark weeks ago. It's just a notch really on the side of your plank, a little line with a cross through it. You made it during a stormy night when you couldn't sleep, and the creaking of the ship sounded too much like a voice calling your name. You don't believe it does anything. Probably, maybe, but you trace it with your finger sometimes, like tonight, and there's a fringe belief tied to that, one that never makes it into ship logs or books about navigation, just sailor lore passed from bunk to bunk. It says the sea doesn't want to drown you. Not really. What she wants is your fear, your attention, your respect. Sleep too soundly, dream too sweetly, and she might get jealous. Hence the marks, the songs, the whispered prayers, the little agreements you make silently, hoping the sea will pass you over tonight and take someone else. You'd never say it out loud, but every man down here thinks it. Let it be someone else. The tension grows as the ship rocks harder. A fresh groan rolls through the beam above your head, and a few of the men sit up. Alan's gone quiet now. No more stories. The hold has taken on that charged stillness again, like everything's holding its breath. You grip your cloak tighter, tracing your mark with your thumb. The cat still hasn't come back. Someone across the hold mutters a prayer. Not loudly, just enough. You hear St. Elmo's name again. He's the go-to, the patron of sailors, the one you call on when storms hit and the deck starts tilting at unnatural angles. You've mumbled his name once or twice yourself, more out of reflex than faith. But tonight, it feels heavier, more necessary. There's a debate among scholars, because of course there is, about whether these superstitions actually served a psychological function, or were just a result of the harsh conditions. But when you're here lying awake in the dark with your back aching and your stomach still twitching from the last bout of seasickness, you don't care about academic theories. You care about whatever gets you through the night. And tonight, superstition is what's doing the heavy lifting. You close your eyes, breathe in slow and steady. The ship cacks again, the kind of sound that sends a chill up your spine, but nothing snaps. Nothing leaks. Not yet. You whisper your own little ritual. Half nonsense, half hope. Let the wind go where it wants. Let the sea sleep. Let the night pass through me. It's not a spell, not even a prayer. Just something you say every night now. You don't know if it works, but you're still here. There's a sound the ship makes at night that no one talks about. Not the shrieking crack of wood under pressure, or the deep groan of the mast shifting its old bones. Not the familiar whip of ropes against sails, or the splash of waves slapping at the hull. This sound is quieter, subtle, almost musical. It's the lullaby from the hull. You're lying on your plank pressed close to the ship's ribs, the timber cool against your cheek when you finally start to hear it. Not just the noise, but the pattern. Then nausea arrives like a thought that won't leave. At first a hum, then a twist, then a bag of eels in your gut. Lantern flicker. Half light. The choir has come apart. Some still wheeze, others stir, but you only hear the churn. You sit up. The world sways wrong. Tilt, roll, pause just long enough to trick your balance, then tilt again. You inhale. Mistake. The hold's perfume of sweat, salt, damp wood, and 100 boots punches you square in the stomach, hand to belly. Cold sweat blooms. Seasick again. You thought you were past it. You were proud of those sea legs. Now, welcome back to square one. You try slow breathing. Ginger once made your vomit taste like spiced regret. A sip of water sloshes like a wave in a barrel. You gag, hand to mouth, and lurch for the corner everyone knows and no one names. The pit. You make it. Barely. Then heaving, coughing, ribs protesting. A rat bolts offended. You wipe your mouth on a sleeve already lacquered in salt. This kind of sickness comes in sets. Recede, return with interest. Sleep deprived, your body doesn't know what it wants. Rest, relief, a new stomach. You stay where you are, slumped against a beam, breath shallow. Others are green around the edges, though they hide it better. Alain chews something sacred he refuses to share, probably moss with a mythology. People forget, seasickness doesn't vanish when you lie down or pray into a bucket. It can linger for days, leave for hours, then ambush you when you need your wits. Medieval hulls rolled worse than modern ships, high, rounded bottoms, no real stabilization. In storms, they're tumbling barrels. In calms, they still wander under wind and current. There's an old joke theory that captains hired by stomach didn't puke on boarding. You're in probably false, perfectly true in spirit. Fringe belief says the sea punishes the unaccepted, twisting guts until she's satisfied you're worthy or gone. Men tossed coins, crumbs, hair overboard when no one looked, begging mercy. You haven't tossed anything yet. You consider Gerard's sock. Eventually the nausea eases enough for sight. You stand, swaying, and stagger back to your plank. Gerard sleeps with his mouth open. You loathe him with holy purity. Careful now, you lie on your side and breathe with the roll, not against it. Ride the motion. Let your gut float like a loose knot. Swear off food forever. Vow to assault the next bowl of stew. You burp. Survive it. Progress. Someone once said the sea has a mind. Whoever it was had lost too many friends to the inexplicable. Tonight, her mind is restless. Wind rising. Not a storm yet, but something building. You feel it in the deck boards and in the sails' beastly groan. The air tastes metallic. Your teeth ache. The cat is nowhere. Bad sign. Cloak tight. Calm gone. You accept you won't sleep. The ship creaks like it's about to confess. Pressure thickens in the hold. So you listen. Near the forebeam, two men whisper, half story, half confession. She carved it in the mast, one says, keeps the storm off. Last ship that ignored the marks went down in half a night. You edge closer like you aren't. Off watch, listening is half the work. It's Alain, of course, hunched. Over a rope he's not tying, entertaining two younger hands haloed by lantern glow. So you don't sleep through a cursed night, he rasps. Not without a mark. What mark, one asks. Any. Alain shrugs. Circle. Star. The name of someone you trust. Cut it in your beam. The rail. Your own hand, if you must. So a doodle keeps the sea away. The boy tries a laugh and doesn't find one. I'm saying, Alain's voice sharpens, you don't bargain with the sea. She bargains with you while you're dreaming, or worse. That shuts them up for a second. Then the younger one, Jack maybe, leans forward and asks, you ever dream of her? The question hangs. You've heard that one before. It's not about the sea in general. It's about her. The woman in white. The one who stands at the bow during rough waters. The one who sings when the wind goes still. The one who walks into your dreams and asks you questions you don't know how to answer. You don't know if she's real, but you've heard her name whispered too many times not to wonder. Alan doesn't answer right away. Then he says, once. The boys lean in. She had seaweed in her hair, he murmurs, and her eyes were the color of anchor rust. Said I'd sleep forever if I kissed her. Woke up soaked in seawater and blood. My own nose, I think. Someone lets out a low whistle. You lie back on your plank again, eyes half closed now. The tale's taken root. It'll be passed along now, mutating, growing, until half the crew's carving circles into their bunks and sleeping with their knives under their pillows. It sounds like superstition. It is superstition, but you'll be honest, you carved your own mark weeks ago. It's just a notch really on the side of your plank, a little line with a cross through it, You made it during a stormy night when you couldn't sleep and the creaking of the ship sounded too much like a voice calling your name. You don't believe it does anything. Probably, maybe, but you trace it with your finger sometimes, like tonight, and there's a fringe belief tied to that, one that never makes it into ship logs or books about navigation, just sailor lore passed from bunk to bunk. It says the sea doesn't want to drown you. Not really. What she wants is your fear, your attention, your respect. Sleep too soundly, dream too sweetly, and she might get jealous. Hence the marks, the songs, the whispered prayers, the little agreements you make silently, hoping the sea will pass you over tonight and take someone else. You'd never say it out loud, but every man down here thinks it. Let it be someone else. The tension grows as the ship rocks harder. A fresh groan rolls through the beam above your head, and a few of the men sit up. Alan's gone quiet now. No more stories. The hold has taken on that charged stillness again, like everything's holding its breath. You grip your cloak tighter, tracing your mark with your thumb. The cat still hasn't come back. Someone across the hold mutters a prayer. Not loudly, just enough. You hear St. Elmo's name again. He's the go-to, the patron of sailors, the one you call on when storms hit and the deck starts tilting at unnatural angles. You've mumbled his name once or twice yourself, more out of reflex than faith. But tonight, it feels heavier, more necessary. There's a debate among scholars, because of course there is, about whether these superstitions actually served a psychological function or were just a result of the harsh conditions. But when you're here lying awake in the dark with your back aching and your stomach still twitching from the last bout of seasickness, you don't care about academic theories. You care about whatever gets you through the night. And tonight, superstition is what's doing the heavy lifting. You close your eyes, breathe in slow and steady. The ship cacks again, the kind of sound that sends a chill up your spine, but nothing snaps. Nothing leaks. Not yet. You whisper your own little ritual. Half nonsense, half hope. Let the wind go where it wants. Let the sea sleep. Let the night pass through me. It's not a spell, not even a prayer. Just something you say every night now. You don't know if it works, but you're still here. There's a sound the ship makes at night that no one talks about. Not the shrieking crack of wood under pressure, or the deep groan of the mast shifting its old bones. Not the familiar whip of ropes against sails, or the splash of waves slapping at the hull. This sound is quieter, subtle, almost musical. It's the lullaby from the hull. You're lying on your plank pressed close to the ship's ribs, the timber cool against your cheek when you finally start to hear it. Not just the noise, but the pattern. The way the ship speaks to itself in soft creaks and murmurs like an old woman telling stories in her sleep. The boards shift with every roll of the water, and each movement comes with a sound, a stretch, a sigh, a low hum from deep in the belly of the vessel. It's not language exactly, but you could almost convince yourself it is. Like the ship is remembering something, or humming a tune it learned from the sea long ago. You've been aboard long enough now to stop fearing the noises. At first every crack made you flinch. Every groan felt like a warning. But now they're part of the soundtrack of survival. You've memorized the harmless sounds, and the ones that mean trouble. Apart from the rigging overhead, normal. A sudden sharp snap, not normal. A pause in all sound like the ship holding its breath. That's when your stomach drops. But tonight is different. The wind outside has calmed again. Not fully, never fully, but enough that the sails hang a little slack, and the motion of the waves is steady, rhythmic, predictable. And so the ship sings, not out loud of course, but in the way her joints move, the way the timbers rise and fall like lungs, the way the entire hold cacks in harmony, as if the ship is rocking you to sleep, not the other way around. You press your palm flat against the floor beside your bed, fingers spread. You can feel the vibration in the wood, soft and low, like the rumble of a cat's purr if the cat were made of oak and nails and was constantly trying to murder you in storms. It's oddly soothing. There's something deeply ancient in the rhythm. You can imagine sailors from 100 years ago, lying exactly where you are now, hands pressed to the same boards, hearing the same lullaby. Someone snores nearby, deep and regular. Another mutters in his sleep the usual chorus, but even their sounds fade into the background as the lullaby gets into your bones. There's a fringe belief among sailors, one of the strange ones not openly spoken, but passed quietly between bunks, that a ship's soul lives in the sound of her timbers. that when you sleep close enough, long enough, she starts to sing to you. Not everyone hears it. Only those who've earned her trust, or maybe just those who are too exhausted to fight it. Alan naturally believes it completely. He says it's how old ships choose who survives. They test you first, wear you down, and then when you've broken enough times, they sing you to sleep. If you hear the song, it means the ship's accepted you. If you don't hear it, well, maybe you're just not listening hard enough. Or maybe you don't belong here. You used to laugh at that. Now you're not so sure, because tonight, as your eyes begin to drift shut, the lullaby gets clearer. It's not words, just sound. A kind of long, low sigh through the boards, steady and endless like the ocean exhaling. It weaves through the groans of the mast and the whisper of ropes shifting above. A melody made of weight and wood and weather. The ship isn't fighting the sea tonight. It's floating with it, breathing in rhythm, dreaming. And you, for once, feel like maybe you can dream too. Your body, for all its aches, begins to unwind. Your feet tingle from where the cold has finally given up and gone numb. Your hands are sore but relaxed. Your head rests against the damp plank, like it was carved to fit your skull. And the itch, the lice, the crawling sensation beneath your shirt, still there but less important. The lullaby is louder. There's even a point, brief, fleeting, where you stop thinking about the rats, the ghosts, the dreams of drowning. You don't worry about your next shift, or whether the cook will try to pass off spoiled fish as breakfast again. You don't even care that your blanket smells like someone else's armpit. You just listen. You listen and you breathe, and for the first time in too many nights, your body isn't flinching from rest. It's welcoming it. Scholars, of course, debate whether any of this has merit. They say sailors were simply sleep-deprived, that their brains learn to turn repetitive noises into comfort. That after weeks at sea, your mind needs a pattern to cling to, so it invents one in the sounds around you. They call it psychological adaptation. Maybe they're right, but as you lie here, your fingertips on the boards, your ear pressed close, it doesn't feel like invention. It feels like invitation. Like the ship for once is telling you, you can rest now. I've got this. It won't last. It never does. You'll be shaken awake in a few hours, called back to the deck. The wind will return, the sails will strain, and the peaceful rhythm will splinter back into chaos. But right now, the hull is singing, and you are part of the song and you sleep. The captain's quarters are quiet as they always are when the rest of the ship is groaning, snoring, puking, or otherwise sounding like a choir of exhaustion. You're not usually up here, at least not for long, but you've been assigned to bring something to the door. A chart rolled and tied. Nothing dramatic, but it gives you an excuse to peek into the one place on the ship where sleep might possibly be a little less miserable. You knock, no answer. You knock again, and after a long moment, a voice grumbles, "Leave it." So you do, setting the scroll by the door, but you linger just for a few seconds, because inside that door is the captain. And unlike the rest of the crew, he has a bed. A real one, or at least what passes for one at sea. You've caught glimpses. A narrow-framed bunk wedged against the back wall, sometimes with a wool blanket that doesn't look half-rotted. A pillow that seems suspiciously clean. Maybe even straw-stuffed cushions. Luxury bordering on sin. No rats, probably. No feet in his face unless he invites them. No barrel of pickled fish stored underneath. No sleepwalking deck hands tripping over his knees in the night. But even so, you wouldn't trade places with him. Because when the rest of you are snoring or trying to, or at least faking it under a damp cloak, he doesn't really sleep. He waits. You've seen him in the early hours standing by the tiller like a statue, eyes red-rimmed, jaw set, hands gripping the rail so tightly the veins show. While you dream of food or beds or women with normal teeth, he's charting stars, counting wind shifts, worrying about cargo, wondering if this is the trip that finally goes wrong. Sleep for the captain comes in pieces. A half hour here, an hour there. Always with one boot still on. Always with one ear tuned for footsteps or shouts or worse, silence. Because silence means something's coming. You head back below, footsteps light, and rejoin the rank and file. Gerard is snoring again. Of course he is. Thomas is playing his favorite nightly game. Is that my blanket or yours? A couple of men are mumbling in their sleep. But nothing violent yet. You slide back into your space. Your back hits the familiar plank. The warmth has mostly fled, but the shape of your body is still there. Indentations, friction polish spots, places where your ribs have practically worn grooves. You settle into it with a sigh. You wonder what it's like for the captain lying in that private room. maybe with a lamp still burning, maybe with a map on his chest like a paper blanket. You imagine the sound is different up there. Less breathing, less farting, less people. But maybe that's worse. Too quiet, too many thoughts. He can't fully trust anyone else on this ship. Not really. That's the curse of rank. Every man here would follow an order in a storm, sure, but sleep, trust, that's another matter. So he watches, he listens, he lays on a nicer bed and dreams of less than you do. That's the trade. There's a fringe belief, old and mostly forgotten, that captains don't dream at sea, that the weight of command drowns it, that the sea doesn't let them. If they start to dream, they miss something, a gust, a shift, a sail out of place. So the sea takes their dreams and gives them nightmares instead. And so while the rest of the crew may wake from sleep, the captain often just lies there, eyes open in the dark, already aware of what's gone wrong. You're not sure if that's romantic or just depressing. You've only seen him truly tired once, middle of a gale. The crew had been working non-stop. The deck was chaos, lines snapping, sails flapping like mad beasts, the waves breaking high enough to soak your eyebrows. And amid all that, the captain sat for a second, just 1 second, at top a barrel, elbows on knees, head hanging like his spine had given out. Not asleep, just drained, just human. Then he stood, shouted orders, steered into the wave like sleep never mattered. Tonight you find yourself weirdly grateful that someone else is up there right now, awake, thinking. While you lie in your own damp pocket of misery, the ship shifts slightly, a soft lean to port, and you hear a faint creak from above. His footsteps, maybe. You don't envy him, but you respect the hell out of him. You remember what it felt like early in the voyage, when you were still green enough to be scared every time the hull made a new noise. You'd glance toward the captain, waiting for his reaction. If he looked calm, you tried to convince your bladder to follow suit. If he looked tense, you started writing your will in your head, because out here the captain's mood is the weather you don't see. If he's solid, the ship feels solid. If he wavers, everything else starts to shake. You tug your blanket tighter around your shoulders. It smells worse now somehow, like old sweat mixed with despair and a hint of vinegar. But it's yours, your little corner of rest. And you think again, what if he does sleep differently? Maybe not deeper, but smarter. Does he close his eyes and hear the wind shifting in the lines? Does he dream in maps and tide charts? Or does he just lie there listening for the footsteps that mean trouble is coming? You think about offering to trade spots just once, just for a night. Then you think about the look in his eyes after a long storm, and you decide to keep your plank, even with the smell, even with Gerard, even with the rats tap dancing on the rafters. You don't have to worry about mutiny, about hull integrity, about profit margins and navigation. And God forbid diplomacy. You just have to survive your watch. Keep your food down and not fall overboard. The sea has different rules for captains. That much is obvious. And maybe when this voyage is over, and you finally stumble back onto solid land, you'll dream of waves and ropes and shouting. But the captain, maybe he'll finally sleep. Real sleep. The kind you forget as soon as it's over. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he gave that up the moment he took the title. You pull your cloak over your head, block out the lantern's glow, and breathe in the damp, salty human stench of your floating dormitory. And for now at least, you're glad it's him lying awake above you. Not you. You're dreaming again. Not the usual kind. The slow, sticky hallucinations your brain cooks up when it's been pickled in seawater and half-starved of real sleep. No, this dream feels different. More real, more fluid. Like the sea has poured itself straight into your mind and made a home behind your eyes. You're standing on the deck. That part's familiar enough. The ropes creak. The sails shudder. The salt bites at your skin, but everything is wrong. Too smooth, too still. The ship isn't moving. The sea is flat, glassy, endless. Not calm, just stuck. No wind, no current. The sails hang limp like wet laundry. The whole world feels like it's holding its breath. You look around expecting to see the crew, but there's no one. No footsteps, no grumbling voices, no laughter or coughs or muttered swears, just you and the sound. It starts faint, so quiet you could mistake it for wind. But there is no wind, just that low hum like singing. But not words, not language. It vibrates through the deck, into your boots, up through your ribs. You step forward, but the wood beneath you feels soft. Too soft. Like the ship isn't wood at all, but some kind of skin. Something pulsing gently underfoot. You press your palm against the rail. It's warm. The song grows louder. You move to the bow, pulled by the sound, and there she is. Not the cat, not a sailor. Her. She's standing at the edge of the ship, facing away. Hair moving as though there is wind now. Long black wet. Not dripping, not soaking. Just part of the air like smoke in a shape. You want to speak. Ask who she is. Ask what she wants. But your throat is closed. Your mouth won't open. And somehow you know it wouldn't matter. She turns slowly. Her face is blurred. Not shadowed. Not hidden. Just wrong. Like your eyes can't hold it. Like every time you blink, she has a new face. A new expression. None of them quite human. Not monstrous, just other. Her eyes settle on you, grey, empty, and suddenly the sea moves. The ship jolts hard like it's been dropped onto the surface. You stumble. She doesn't. The sea begins to boil around you. Not hot, but violent. Frothing like something beneath it is rising. She takes a step toward you. Her feet don't make sound. Another step and another. You can't move. Your body is heavy, nailed in place. You want to run, want to scream, but you're a passenger in your own limbs. Now her mouth opens. The song gets louder. It pours into your ears, pressing behind your eyes, filling your head with something that feels like pressure and salt and loss. Then a splash, a real one. You bolt upright. The dream shatters like glass. Your breath comes hard, sharp. Your shirt is soaked in sweat, clinging like a second skin. Your heart is hammering in your throat. You look around, panicked. The hold is real again. You're on your plank. The lantern still burns, though. Someone groans in their sleep. Someone coughs. The familiar stench of unwashed bodies hits your nose, and you nearly cry with relief. But something's wrong. There's water on your face. You reach up, touch your cheek. It's not sweat. It's theater. Cold fresh like a wave just kissed your skin. You look toward the corner of the hold. Nothing. Just crates, barrels, rope. No leak, no dripping. Your stomach coils. The dream is still with you. You can feel it behind your eyes, clinging like fog. That woman. Her eyes, her voice, the way the sea boiled, the way the ship listened to her. You've heard stories, of course. All sailors have. Stories of sea spirits. Drowned women who haunt the water. Creatures that appear in dreams when storms are near, or when death is coming, or when the ship's forgotten its place in the order of things. Some call her the Grey Widow, others the Drowned Bride. The French sailors have a name for her, L'Ormuse, the sleeper. She comes not to wake you, but to drag you down into sleep you don't wake from. There's a fringe theory that she's the ocean's memory, that every sailor lost at sea becomes part of her body, that she walks on calm nights just before the storm, looking for those whose minds are already halfway sunk. You swing your legs off the plank, sit up and press your feet to the cold, damp wood. You're awake now. You know that. But your hands are still trembling. The ship cacks beneath you, not in its usual gentle rhythm, but faster now. Tense like it's bracing. Above you hear movement. Bootsteps, then a shout, muffled but urgent. Something's coming. A storm or something worse. You pull on your cloak, still soaked from days of wear. Your boots are stiff. You curse under your breath, but it doesn't help. Nothing does. You glance back at your sleeping crewmates. Gerard oblivious. Thomas twitching. Allah awake now, sitting upright in the dark, staring straight ahead like he's seen her too. Your eyes meet. He doesn't say anything. He just nods, and that more than anything makes you shiver. You stand. The lullaby from the hull is gone now. All that's left is the creak of tension and the rising wind. The wind hits hard before you reach the ladder, slamming down through the open hatch like it knows you are thinking of peace, and came to personally correct you. It smells sharp charged, thick with the kind of salt that doesn't just cling to your skin but carves its way in. You look up, squinting at the swinging glow above, and catch the tail end of a shouted command, something about reefing sails. And then more footsteps thunder past, boots striking in staggered, panicked rhythm. You climb fast. Your knees hate you for it, and your shoulders scream with every pull. But you're up and out before your brain can talk you out of it. The deck greets you like a slap to the face. The ship is already tilting into the wind. Not wildly, not yet, but you can feel it in the way the boards rise and fall beneath your feet with new impatience. There's no real rain, just mist, cold and furious, swirling off black waves that are beginning to roll like something is waking up underneath them. The sails are half up, strained and groaning, and the rigging cacks like it's trying to tear itself apart. You stumble toward your post, boots slipping on slick wood. Your hands grab for rope instinctively, more muscle memory than decision, and a second later you're hauling without thinking. One of the older deck hands barks something at you. Maybe praise, maybe insult. Hard to tell in this wind. This storm doesn't roar in like the last one. It builds slow, deliberate, as if it's testing the ship, inching up its violence degree by degree, letting you feel every stage of your own rising dread. The waves aren't huge yet, but they're stacking with a pattern that says soon. Each one taller than the last, each one throwing the ship's weight around a little more. You hear the captain shouting across the deck, voice slicing clean through the wind. He's not panicked, not yet, but he's serious. You catch the way he's moving, leaning into the gusts, eyes scanning the sky like he's reading a language only he can understand. You glance upward. No moon, no stars, just clouds thick and fast and low, the kind that eat light and don't give anything back. The air tastes electric, and your dream comes back all at once. Not just as memory, but feeling. That woman, her song, her eyes. You rub your arms even though the cold doesn't explain this kind of shiver. You look around. Alan's on the main line, face grim. He looks up just once and gives you another one of those nods. Not friendly, not comforting, just confirming. You saw her too. He doesn't need to say it. He knows. There's an old belief. You heard it whispered one night while scrubbing the deck, half asleep and half frozen, that if more than one sailor sees the drowned woman in a dream, it means the ship has been marked. Not doomed exactly, just watched, noticed, and that maybe, just maybe, she'll come collect someone. Not everyone, just the one she's chosen. You don't want to think about that. You work whole shift, brace. Your fingers burn as you grip a line pulled too tight, and a sudden gust nearly knocks you flat. You grunt, dig your heels in, and plant your weight. Hold that line, or we all go swimming, someone shouts. You don't recognize the voice, but the message lands. The sea is rising now. The ship's beginning to pitch harder, its bow lifting and slamming like a living thing trying to break free of whatever's pulling it. Every wave feels a little more deliberate, like it's aiming. Then out of the corner of your eye you see her again, just for a second. At the very edge of the ship, past the starboard rail where the waves meet the sky, there's a shape. White, leaning just a little forward. Not moving, not screaming. Just there. Then gone. You freeze, not because you believe it, but because you do. You're not the only one. You see another sailor stop mid-step, stare into the mist, then shake his head violently and go back to work. Everyone's pretending they didn't see anything. That's how you know something's actually wrong, because sailors will lie to themselves to stay sane. They'll lie straight through a lightning strike if it keeps the wind in the right direction. And tonight, no one wants to admit what they just saw. You grab a bucket and start bailing out the low deck, which is already collecting spray from the rising waves. You scoop, dump, scoop again. The water sloshes around your boots, icy and insistent. The lightning comes soon after, thin, pale streaks that branch like veins across the sky, flashing behind the sails and turning the rigging into a silhouette of bones. You brace yourself for thunder, but it never comes. Just more silence, thick and waiting. The storm is not normal. You can feel it now. The sea isn't angry. It's curious, like it's circling you, testing the hull, measuring your fear. Another bolt flashes. You look toward the helm. The captain is standing there, one hand on the wheel, the other raised to his brow, peering into the storm. He hasn't moved. He's watching the horizon, watching for something you can't see. And for the first time, he looks unsure. The hold is probably chaos by now. Men tumbling, barrels rolling, curses flying. But up here, no one has time to complain. Every man is just hanging on. Rope, rail, instinct. Your muscles are screaming. Your lungs burn with cold air. But your mind is the worst part because it keeps replaying that dream. The woman, her voice, her promise. You remember her mouth forming words without sound. You remember the way your body wanted to step forward, even as your brain begged you not to. You look to Allah again. He's tying a knot that doesn't need tying. His eyes flick to the edge of the ship, then back to you. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak, just works faster. And suddenly you understand the worst part of it all. You don't have to drown to be lost at sea. You just have to give in. The storm is only beginning. The ship is holding for now, but something beneath the storm is watching, waiting, listening for someone to stop resisting and take that one step forward. The storm hits its stride like a drunk, remembering he owes someone a fight. Wind screams through the rigging now. Screams, not whistles, the kind of sound that gets under your skin and unravels you from the inside. You've heard wind before, of course, but this is different. This wind sounds personal, like it knows your name, like it's trying to claw it out of the air just to spit it into the sea. The ship is lurching like it's drunk too, staggering sideways, as it rides up a steep wave and then crashes down again with a spine-rattling thud that sends you sprawling onto the slick deck. You barely manage to hold onto the rope in your hand. You bite your tongue on the way down and taste blood. Doesn't matter. Can't stop. You haul yourself upright, feet wide, knees bent, eyes half shut against the spray. You're soaked through like everyone else. There's no such thing as staying dry in this kind of madness. Your cloak clings to you like seaweed, heavy with brine, tugging at your limbs every time you move. The sky has gone a full shade darker now. It's not black. It's blue-black, deep and unnatural, like ink spilled across the clouds. The lightning is coming more often now, so bright it burns your eyes when you forget to look away. And still no thunder. That's the worst part. You expect the boom. You brace for it. You flinch every time the sky cracks open, but it never comes. Just flash after flash, silent and sharp like the sea is taking photos of your last moments and doesn't want the shutter noise to ruin the mood. The captain barks more orders. You can't hear them anymore. You don't need to. At this point, you're working on pure instinct. Grip, brace, pull, tie. Every movement is survival. There's no room for thinking. Thinking gets people killed. Someone near the bow slips and vanishes over the edge. You see it happen. 1 second. He's there, crawling across the deck. The neck's gone, no scream. Just a splash swallowed by the storm. You don't even have time to react. The ship jerks again and you slam back against the mast, the wind forcing itself into your ears like 1,000 knives. Your knuckles tear against the rigging as you tighten the knot that holds the lower sail. Your fingers are trembling, cold fear. You're not sure, probably both. It's hard to tell anymore where your body ends and the storm begins. Around you, the crew moves like shadows, figures in cloaks and loose tunics soaked to the bone. Faces pale, hair whipping around like seagrass. No one speaks unless they have to. Everyone's eyes are wide now, darting toward the rail because she's out there again. You see her every few flashes. Not on the ship this time in the waves, tall, pale, standing upright where no one should be, where nothing should be. Her white dress trailing into foam. Her arms outstretched, not waving, not beckoning, just open like she's offering something, like she's inviting. And behind her the sea surges. You force yourself to look away. You don't want to, but you have to. You know what happens when sailors stare too long. That story Alan told, that wasn't fiction. That was a warning. And if the look on his face right now is any sign he's seeing her too, and he's terrified. You scramble back toward the middle of the deck, ducking under the boom as it swings overhead, missing your skull by inches. You land hard on your knees beside the main hatch and brace yourself. A massive wave breaks across the deck, sweeping 2 men off their feet. You throw out an arm blindly and catch one by the collar. His weight yanks your shoulder nearly out of its socket, but you hold. He gasps, clinging to your arm like it's the last rope in the world. Together you crawl back to the mast. He doesn't say thank you. You don't ask for one. Nobody talks now because the ship is groaning, not creaking. Groaning long and low like something alive in pain. The wood beneath your feet is soaked, warped, strained past its limit. You feel it in the pit of your stomach. That awful shift in the structure. Like the ship is deciding whether it's worth keeping itself together anymore. You slap a hand against the mast and whisper something. Not a prayer, just words, not yet. Because you need this ship to hold. Not for glory, not for coin, not even for home, just to survive the night. There's a theory, one of the oddball scholarly ones, that old ships responded to their crew. That enough hands on the wheel, enough men working in sync could convince a ship to hold together through the impossible. No magic, just willpower, muscle memory, desperation, the power of belief. When belief is the only thing between you and the deep. You don't know if it's true, but right now you choose to believe it. Because if you don't, the next wave will kill you. You climb to your feet again, stumbling toward the mainstay, eyes locked on the line that's gone half loose. If it snaps, the sail will whip free and take someone's head off. She doesn't need a blanket or permission or explanations. She just is. She hops down, strolls the deck like she owns it, and slips behind a coil of rope. You stay by the rail, eyes drifting to the sky. The wind hums through the rigging, low and steady, a lullaby on frayed strings. For once, you're not tired. Not yet, your feet are numb. The quiet wraps your thoughts. The stars haul you a little way out of yourself. You can't sleep standing like some do, but you understand why they try. You close your eyes for a heartbeat, just to breathe. You've barely ducked below before she finds you again, the ship's cat, brushing your shin like a queen acknowledging a subject. Every plank, every rope coil, every half-rotten sack of barley and leaky barrel of cod. She's mapped it all. You're just passing through. She pauses, tail flicking with the aristocratic contempt of a noble for a sloppy servant. You nod. She ignores you as is proper. Back in your damp corner, Gerard is snoring like a man swallowing a whistle. You step over him and settle onto your plank, wetter than before. Water never sleeps. It only seeps cloak on, boots on. Taking them off is how fungus wins. She hops onto your ribs without asking and curls, using you as a mildly effective stove. She smells of fish guts and sawdust. So do you. Balance achieved. Her purr runs like a small engine in the dark, and your breathing falls into time with it. For a moment, you forget the wood is wet, and your neighbor smells like pickled onions and abandoned plans. She's better company than most. No complaints, no sermons, no sleep singing, no sudden fists for imagined pirates, just a tight ball of indifferent fluff, opening one yellow eye when food wanders past. Ship's cats sit high in the ship's strange hierarchy. Rats are many, but one flash of her eyes, one lazy swipe, and the scurrying stops. Unspoken queen of the lower deck, feared by rats, tolerated by men, half worshipped by a few who've seen things. Alain swears she leapt from forecastle to mainmast in a single bound. Others say she disappears for days and returns spotless. No one feeds her, yet she's never thin, never soaked, never shivering, always dry, always watching. You've begun to think she's more than vermin control, guardian, spy, or just something ancient that refused to die ashore and hitched a ride. Hard men won't sail without a cat, not just for rats, but to keep a ship's soul centered. Superstition, sure, but what isn't out here? Some whisper she reads the future by behavior alone, vanishing before a man goes over, staring at a place no one else can see. Once you saw her crouch and hiss at nothing. That night the rigging snapped mid-sail. No one was hurt. No one forgot. Tonight she's quiet, ears soft, breath slow. Good sign, you shift. Your hip is numb. You can name the knots in the plank by feel. Legs tingling, fingers itching as the lice make their rounds. Still, you rest. The lantern gutters. A clank above, watch change. Not yours. She sighs, an actual sigh, and settles deeper. Just as you sink toward that warm pre-sleep fog, she stiffens, head up, ears pricked. You follow her stare to a shadowed corner by a half-open barrel. Nothing there, only dark. She gives one low growl, then curls again and closes her eyes. You don't ask. You don't look back. If she decided it isn't worth it, that's enough. You turn away, cloak tight. When you wake, she's gone, and so is the chill. Only a faint warmth in the wood and one black hair on your cloak. By now you could map the hold by sound. Who wheezes? Who mutters? Who breathes so faintly you wonder? But tonight is different, half awake. One boot on and one lost to the foot of your plank. You hear it. The snoring has fallen in sync. It begins with a drone from the bow. Then another line slides in, offbeat at first. Then a third, a fourth. Soon the entire hold vibrates, nasal cords and throat bass rising and falling together. You lie still, listening, a ship-shaped instrument played by an atrocious orchestra. Everyone adds a part. Gerard's uneven honk with its skipped beat. Alain's needle whistle. Thomas's deep boot-sole rumble. It's accidental, hypnotic, and infuriatingly comforting. Your body matches it without permission. The closest this crew ever gets to harmony, a lumbering lullaby of congestion. Exhaustion and collapsing hygiene, absurd, tender, human. They've been soaked, bruised, bitten, starved of dignity. Now they sleep like children in a nursery of mildew and salted timber. The snore proves they're alive, and for now, safe. You roll onto your side. The ship's creak becomes percussion. A wave slap adds the drum. A rat's tiny feet tap castanets. You think of music halls, of childhood lullabies, of a warm hand on your back. In the dim, faces slacken into something gentle. This won't last. Orders could crack, a squall could pounce, but for now, there's only breathing. You almost laugh. Softly. You've cursed these men plenty, but fatigue strips them down to a shape you can pity. Maybe even like. Sailors say a crew must be in tune to survive. Bodies moving. Eating, resting to the same beat. Sea songs weren't tradition. They were engineering. Keep rhythm, keep the ship right. Lose it and things fray. Maybe this chorus is the body's echo. We're here. We're together. Old hands claim the sea listens when a crew sleeps in rhythm and sometimes shows mercy. You don't believe it exactly. You want to, you match them. Let the sound hold you. Limbs loosen. Pain fades to the floorboards. You drift, far enough to forget where you are. The nausea sneaks in like a thought. First a hum, then a twist, then a sack of eels in your gut. Lantern flickers. The choir breaks apart. You sit up. The world sways wrong. Tilt, roll, pause, fake you out, tilt. You inhale the hold's perfume of sweat, salt, wet wood, and 100 boot soles, and it hits like a fist, hand to mouth. Lurch to the corner, everyone knows. No elegance, just heaving, coughing, ribs blazing. A rat flees. Offended. You wipe your mouth on a sleeve already varnished in salt. This sickness comes in sets. Recede, return with interest. Sleep starved. Your body can't pick a need. Others are green but practiced at hiding. Alain chews something sacred he won't share, likely moss with good branding. People forget. It doesn't vanish if you lie down or pray into a bucket. Medieval hulls roll worse than modern ships. High rounded bellies. No real stability. Storms make tumbling barrels. Calms still wander. Old joke says captains hired by stomach didn't puke on boarding. Cure in false, in fact true in spirit. Some say it's punishment, the seas test. Men toss coins, crumbs, hair when no one looks. You haven't tossed anything. You consider Gerard's sock. Eventually it eases. You crawl back to your plank, breathe with the roll, let your gut float like a loose knot. Swear off food. Survive a burp. Progress. Someone once swore the sea has a mind. Whoever it was had lost too many friends to the inexplicable. Tonight, her mind is restless. Wind rising. Not storm yet, but the shape of one. You feel it through the boards. The sails groan like a beast turning in sleep. Metal in the air. Your teeth ache. The cat is nowhere. Bad sign. Cloak tight, calm gone. You won't sleep. The ship creaks like it's about to confess. Near the forebeam. Whispers. Story balanced on the line between joke and warning. She carved it into the mast, kept the storm off, Alain says. Rope idle in his hands. Last ship that ignored the signs went down in half a night. What mark? The boy asks. Any, Alain rasps. Circle star, a trusted name. Beam rail the back of your hand if you must. So a doodle keeps the sea away. You don't bargain with the sea, Alain says, voice sharpening. She bargains with you while you dream, or worse. Then the storm is on you. You lurch forward, grab the line and heave, skin gone from 2 knuckles. Salt stings like fire, you tie, you hold. You brace lightning flares, she's closer now. Not in the waves. On the starboard rail, midships, watching wind shoves. You slam an elbow into the rail, pain sparking to your shoulder. You glance, she's gone, and the world goes wrong, wind still blows. Sails still strain, but for one terrible breath everything mutes. The sea flattens, not calm, waiting. From the depths a sound rises, not thunder, not breaking wood, singing. The same tune from your dream. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to refuse it. Palms over ears. You whisper your mark word. Let the wind go. Let the sea sleep. You don't open your eyes until the wind slaps you again. When you do, she's gone. And the storm returns. Fury, rain, noise. A storm, you understand. You can fight a storm. You can't fight the sea when she starts choosing. You don't remember when it ends. Storms don't bow. They fade like tantrums that spent themselves. Waves roll instead of slam. Wind still bites, but you can stand without hunching like a wet rat. Space returns to the air. You hear your breath. The ship hangs for a heartbeat, corpse-like, between violence and quiet. You crouch beside a rope coil at the mainmast. Boots full of cold water. Cloak a heavy, useless blanket. Minutes or hours, time has broken. You're not crouching because you're strong. You're crouching because you're still here. It passes for victory. Is it over? Someone rasps behind you. You don't answer. You don't know. The sky is a mess of grays with slashed silver. The horizon reappears. Jagged lines of waves that look confused after a fight. The captain stands at the helm. Soaked and stone still. Beard dripping. Eyes scanning as if the horizon owes him an apology. Check the lines. Someone shouts. Another. Where's the cat? You blink. Good question. She always appears after storms, padding across the soaked deck like she'd napped dry while you fought for your life. Not this time. Superstition unspools. No cat after. Someone's been marked. She's better company than most. No complaints, no sermons, no sleep singing. No sudden fists for imagined pirates. Just a tight ball of indifferent fluff, opening one yellow eye when food wanders past. Ship's cats sit high in the ship's strange hierarchy. Rats are many, but one flash of her eyes, one lazy swipe, and the scurrying stops. Unspoken queen of the lower deck. Feared by rats, tolerated by men. Half worshipped by a few who've seen things. Alain swears she leapt from forecastle to mainmast in a single bound. Others say she disappears for days and returns spotless. No one feeds her, yet she's never thin, never soaked, never shivering, always dry, always watching. You've begun to think she's more than vermin control, guardian, spy, or just something ancient that refused to die ashore and hitched a ride. Hard men won't sail without a cat, not just for rats, but to keep a ship soul-centered. Superstition, sure, but what isn't out here? Some whisper she reads the future by behavior alone, vanishing before a man goes over, staring at a place no one else can see. Once you saw her crouch and hiss at nothing. That night the rigging snapped mid-sail. No one was hurt. No one forgot. Tonight she's quiet, ears soft, breath slow. Good sign, you shift. Your hip is numb. You can name the knots in the plank by feel. Legs tingling, fingers itching as the lice make their rounds. Still, you rest. The lantern gutters. A clank above, watch change. Not yours. She sighs, an actual sigh, and settles deeper. Just as you sink toward that warm pre-sleep fog, she stiffens, head up, ears pricked. You follow her stare to a shadowed corner by a half-open barrel. Nothing there, only dark. She gives one low growl, then curls again and closes her eyes. You don't ask. You don't look back. If she decided it isn't worth it, that's enough. You turn away, cloak tight. When you wake, she's gone, and so is the chill. Only a faint warmth in the wood and one black hair on your cloak. By now you could map the hold by sound. Who wheezes? Who mutters? Who breathes so faintly you wonder? But tonight is different, half awake. One boot on and one lost to the foot of your plank. You hear it. The snoring has fallen in sync. It begins with a drone from the bow, then another line slides in, offbeat at first, then a third, a fourth. Soon the entire hold vibrates, nasal cords and throat bass rising and falling together. You lie still, listening, a ship-shaped instrument played by an atrocious orchestra. Everyone adds a part. Gerard's uneven honk with its skipped beat. Alain's needle whistle. Thomas's deep boot sole rumble. It's accidental, hypnotic, and infuriatingly comforting. Your body matches it without permission. The closest this crew ever gets to harmony, a lumbering lullaby of congestion. Exhaustion and collapsing hygiene, absurd, tender, human. They've been soaked. Bruised, bitten, starved of dignity. Now they sleep like children in a nursery of mildew and salted timber. The snore proves they're alive. And, for now, safe. You roll onto your side. The ship's creak becomes percussion. A wave slap adds the drum. A rat's tiny feet tap castanets. You think of music halls, of childhood lullabies, of a warm hand on your back. In the dim, faces slacken into something gentle. This won't last. Orders could crack, a squall could pounce, but for now, there's only breathing. You almost laugh. Softly. You've cursed these men plenty, but fatigue strips them down to a shape you can pity. Maybe even like, sailors say a crew must be in tune to survive, bodies moving. Eating, resting to the same beat. Sea songs weren't tradition. They were engineering. Keep rhythm, keep the ship right. Lose it and things fray. Maybe this chorus is the body's echo. We're here. We're together. Old hands claim the sea listens when a crew sleeps in rhythm, and sometimes shows mercy. You don't believe it exactly. You want to, you match them. Let the sound hold you. Limbs loosen. Pain fades to the floorboards. You drift, far enough to forget where you are. The nausea sneaks in like a thought. First a hum, then a twist, then a sack of eels in your gut. Lantern flickers. The choir breaks apart. You sit up. The world sways wrong. Tilt, roll, pause, fake you out, tilt. You inhale the hold's perfume of sweat, salt, wet wood, and 100 boot soles, and it hits like a fist, hand to mouth. Lurch to the corner, everyone knows. No elegance, just heaving, coughing, ribs blazing. A rat flees. Offended. You wipe your mouth on a sleeve already varnished in salt. This sickness comes in sets. Recede, return with interest. Sleep starved. Your body can't pick a need. Others are green but practiced at hiding. Alain chews something sacred he won't share, likely moss with good branding. People forget. It doesn't vanish if you lie down or pray into a bucket. Medieval hulls roll worse than modern ships. High rounded bellies. No real stability. Storms make tumbling barrels. Calms still wander. Old joke says captains hired by stomach didn't puke on boarding. Cure in false, in fact true in spirit. Some say it's punishment, the seas test. Men toss coins, crumbs, hair when no one looks. You haven't tossed anything. You consider Gerard's sock. Eventually it eases. You crawl back to your plank, breathe with the roll, let your gut float like a loose knot. Swear off food. Survive a burp. Progress. Someone once swore the sea has a mind. Whoever it was had lost too many friends to the inexplicable. Tonight, her mind is restless. Wind rising. Not storm yet, but the shape of one. You feel it through the boards. The sails groan like a beast turning in sleep. Metal in the air. Your teeth ache. The cat is nowhere. Bad sign. Cloak tight, calm gone. You won't sleep. The ship creaks like it's about to confess. Near the forebeam. Whispers. Story balanced on the line between joke and warning. She carved it into the mast, kept the storm off, Alain says. Rope idle in his hands. Last ship that ignored the signs went down in half a night. What mark? The boy asks. Any, Alain rasps. Circle star, a trusted name. Beam rail the back of your hand if you must. So a doodle keeps the sea away. You don't bargain with the sea, Alain says, voice sharpening. She bargains with you while you dream, or worse. Then the storm is on you. You lurch forward, grab the line and heave, skin gone from 2 knuckles. Salt stings like fire, you tie, you hold. You brace lightning flares, she's closer now. Not in the waves. On the starboard rail, midships, watching wind shoves. You slam an elbow into the rail, pain sparking to your shoulder. You glance, she's gone, and the world goes wrong, wind still blows. Sails still strain, but for one terrible breath everything mutes. The sea flattens, not calm, waiting. From the depths a sound rises, not thunder, not breaking wood, singing. The same tune from your dream. You close your eyes, not to sleep, to refuse it. Palms over ears. You whisper your mark word. Let the wind go. Let the sea sleep. You don't open your eyes until the wind slaps you again. When you do, she's gone. And the storm returns. Fury, rain, noise. A storm, you understand. You can fight a storm. You can't fight the sea when she starts choosing. You don't remember when it ends. Storms don't bow. They fade like tantrums that spent themselves. Waves roll instead of slam. Wind still bites, but you can stand without hunching like a wet rat. Space returns to the air. You hear your breath. The ship hangs for a heartbeat, corpse-like, between violence and quiet. You crouch beside a rope coil at the mainmast. Boots full of cold water. Cloak a heavy, useless blanket. Minutes or hours, time has broken. You're not crouching because you're strong. You're crouching because you're still here. It passes for victory. Is it over? Someone rasps behind you. You don't answer. You don't know. The sky is a mess of grays with slashed silver. The horizon reappears. Jagged lines of waves that look confused after a fight. The captain stands at the helm. Soaked and stone still. Beard dripping. Eyes scanning as if the horizon owes him an apology. Check the lines. Someone shouts. Another. Where's the cat? You blink. Good question. She always appears after storms, padding across the soaked deck like she'd napped dry while you fought for your life. Not this time. Superstition unspools. No cat after. Someone's been marked. You stand. Every joint argues. Around you, torn sail, cracked spars, a burst flour barrel, weevil soup weak, Jack's shoulder out, someone's black eye with no story, Thomas bleeding and barefoot, but no bodies. So far. Below, you find your berth, expecting ankle-deep ruin. Gear's only wet. Your plank, your cloak, your mark scratched into the timber, still there. You run your thumb over it. It feels sharper somehow. You sit. Your knees click. The hold smells of wet cloth and cold smoke, and something faint, metallic. In the corner by the barrels, you find her, or what's left, curled wrong. Too still. No breath. Tail mute. Bone dry. Eyes open. Mouth slightly parted, as if a hiss were caught between worlds. You don't touch. You back away. Somewhere in the sailor's junk drawer of rules, don't touch the dead cat. You return to your plank and add one small line to your mark. No reason, a feeling. No one speaks of her, yet the air changes. Everyone knows. The ship survived, but the sea took something. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was one of you, and you haven't learned which part yet. There's a fringe tale that cats don't just hunt rats. They carry weight, lightning rods for curses, charms with heartbeats. If she dies, she takes something with her. A name, a fate, a storm that could have been worse. Maybe it's bedtime comfort for men who live aghast from drowning. You don't believe in fate, you believe in her, and you believe in what the ship feels like now, heavy with memory. You lie down, not to sleep, just to rest. No lullaby from the hull tonight, only listening. You close your eyes and see her again, standing beside the cat's body, smiling. You surface, not wake, into the hold's dim. Lantern sways its lazy arc. The ship creaks under your ribs. It's still floating, enough to call it morning. Or not. Time is a suggestion below. You sit up. Your back's one long knot, hands stiff. Ankle swollen from a bad brace. Your tongue tastes like rope and iron. Gerard snores. You assume life continues. You look to the corner, she's gone, no body, no trace, only a smudge in the dirt where she lay. You blink. You remember too well for it to be a dream. Her eyes open, mouth parted, as if trying to finish a sentence. Boots on, legs jelly, you climb to deck. Sunlight is brutal. Not warm, just bright, like the sky is examining you for flaws. The sea lies near glassy. Sails draw but don't strain. The crew moves with the storm after hush. Soft voices, quiet hands, eyes scanning lines and masts. The cook mutters at a pot that smells like boiled sawdust. Best meal you'll get. By the port rail, Alain traces something into the wood. A crescent, shallow as a smile. He meets your eye, nods. You nod back. Enough said. The captain at the helm. Again shoulders slackened in a new way. Gaze fixed on a horizon that owes him answers. Maybe he saw what you saw. Maybe something else. Either way something, the calm is wrong. Sailors fear dead calm more than storms. It unravels men. Some argue it isn't weather at all, but the sea resting like a predator after a meal. You believe it now. You patch a line, mop the worst of the wet, accept a bowl of whatever the cook conjured and eat without comment. Even Gerard is quiet. By night, the calm isn't gone. A thin wind whispers like a lullaby you don't trust. Below, back to your plank. Same cloak, your mark is deeper, your hand steadier. For the first time in ages, the itch is gone. The wood feels almost warm. You drift at the edges when you hear it. A single purr, low, steady, soft. You freeze. Look. Nothing. Listen. Silence. Maybe it's memory playing tricks. Maybe she isn't gone. Maybe she moved. One mark traded for another, one weight lifted, some price paid. You lie back, cloak tight. The ship breathes. Familiar again. And for the first time in weeks, you sleep, truly sleep, no dreams. Only breath.